Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. I think this is the 13th episode of Cast the Future, if I'm not correct. 13th or 14th. I don't know. I've kind of lost count. But anyway, 13th or 14th. But anyway, what's even more important is that it is our first October Halloween episode of Cast the Future. So exciting. It's about to get spooky in here. So we got a lovely panel. We've got I myself, Curtis, host and head judge as most of the time. We have Logan coming back as one of our judges. We have Hunter hanging out at Bates Motel as one of our debaters. We have Jack as our debater. We have Jessica as our third debater. We have Erik as one of our judges, and our last judge, we have Johnny. Now, as you can tell by Hunter's background, the movie we are going to be discussing for Cast Feature today is 1960s Alfred Hitchcock's classic Psycho. Um, and of course, as Psycho is just a psychological thriller horror movie where you could probably argue, even though Halloween paved the way for the modern day slasher films, you could kind of argue that maybe Psycho was probably like one of the first slasher films, and it started a hype train for many other slasher films to come in the near future. Um, as always, we're going to start off by explaining our brief opinions on the film. I'll go first. I first saw Psycho when I think I was a junior or early senior in high school. And from the moment I watched it, I fell in love with it. And the crazy thing is that the shower scene in the film has been parodied in so many movies and TV shows and cartoons that even as a kid, when you see that, like if you watch Psycho, you know what's going to happen. You know the shower scene is going to come up. But from my first experience watching, even though I knew the scene was coming up, it was still massively suspenseful. The build up to it still got me. When you see I mean, spoilers. When you see Norman slash his lover, when Marion's taking a shower and you see the killer coming through the door, it just gets under your skin. It's like, oh my god, it's like a shadow coming in and just murdering you. And I just love the little hints on the final twist that Hitchcock puts in the film. One I caught when I just recently watched it in the movie this morning is when um, Marion is checking into the Bates Motel, and Norman is giving her with the keys. And when she turns to get the keys, he kind of stops for a bit, and he looks like room number one, room number two. Like he kind of struggles and stops for a bit, and he finally picks key number one. And that kind of gives you a hint of his like what's going on in his head, what's going on in the back of his head, like the way he's thinking or the way someone else is thinking for him. So it's it's a little stuff like that that makes the movie a classic, that makes it great. So it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time. Simply a classic. Um, Erik, what are your thoughts on Psycho?
Out of all the episodes that we've done, this is the first episode of a movie we've done where I did not grow up with the movie. I saw it in high school as well. I saw it in my filmmaking class, and there was like 20 kids in this class, and me and like maybe three other kids loved film. Everyone else was there for the easy A. So when our teacher put on Psycho, um, all the 15 kids were groaning saying this movie was so boring. And I am like, what are you all smoking? This movie's awesome. But I'm like, all right, I'll just watch it and enjoy it while they're all groaning. Yeah, filmmaking class in high school. It was, yeah, kids are idiots. But that score by Herman still haunts me to this day. Just the shower scene, you can't forget that. And especially The Simpsons, you never see that the same again. But even watching that scene in the original film, it's still scary because you just don't expect it. It's the first movie that just was very that was very it took the risks. Even flushing a toilet, that was unheard of in the 1960s in a movie. So you gotta have to give Alfred Hitchcock a lot of respect, especially storyboarding the entire thing before he shot it. It was just really well put together. And Anthony Perkins still is scary to this day. He was amazing in that film. And it was also one of the first films that killed someone you didn't think in the opening like 20, 30 minutes, you're just like, oh, she's going to be the lead. No, she's not. You got to think. And then Scream later does it later. So you're like, the movie started so much, just like Curtis said, and it's a timeless classic to me.
Okay, Hunter, what are your thoughts on Psycho?
Classic horror film. Definitely opened the door from what was to what we still have today. Honestly, it's so good it holds up in just about every way. The one gripe I had with it when I finally watched it, and I think I didn't see it until actually I was a freshman in college, was the final scene where they have to bring in a psychiatrist to give a long-winded monologue to explain to the audience exactly what's been going on the entire time. But that just shows how revolutionary the film was, that in a modern sensibility, we just take a lot of these things for granted. But very much how Bram Stoker's Dracula spends literally an hour explaining the concept of a vampire to the audience. Psycho had to do this groundwork that today we're able to sort of just continue forward in horror. And it's so good, I've never bothered to watch any of the sequels nor Bates Motel. Though I've heard the show is quite good, I will probably never watch it. Although that depends on how long we're stuck in quarantine, because I'm running out of content.
Okay, Jack, your thoughts on Psycho?
Oh, well, amen to everything that's been said so far. Like all the best horror movies, like all the best any movies, like all the best art, it stands the test of time. It is still scary. It is still intriguing. Even if you've seen it many, many times, like I have, it's still creepy. Even if you know what's going to happen, it is still, whoa. And it's funny, generalists tend to identify Hitchcock as, more of a horror movie, potboiler suspense guy, but the performances that he gets from this and from all of his movies really are just amazing. I think everyone in this movie is so good, particularly Anthony Perkins and Janet Leigh. I think Janet Leigh should have won. She was the only one nominated. The other thing that impresses me so much about this movie and Hitchcock in general is how little is needed. It was made on the budget of his TV show. So it was done in black and white. There's not a lot of gore. You never see an actual stabbing. You never see a bare breast in the shower. It's less is more. And it is so, so effective. Like all the best movies.
And Jessica?
It is one of my favorite movies. I will say the very first time I watched it was in, I think, 2016 or 2017. It was very late to the game. And like I knew what happened, and I had been watching Bates Motel and all that, but it still like gripped my attention from beginning to end, and I was obsessed with it. And then of course, like I'm also into true crime, so like finding out the cool like little tidbits and history facts about like it was based on a book that was written about Ed Gein, or inspired by Ed Gein, and just the fact of like you learn behind the scene facts of like to make sure that no spoilers got out. Like Hitchcock did a campaign where it was buying every copy of the books that nobody could read it beforehand and spoil the movie. And this book came out, I think the movie came out, I think like only a year after the book was written. So that was like striking while the iron was hot. And kind of like Erik said, it really kind of paved the way for making horror movies that take a turn that you're not expecting with killing what you believe is your main protagonist. It did it for things like Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, and it's just really, really intriguing. So I love it. It's my favorite.
Donnie?
I can't love Hitchcock any more than is imaginably possible for my own sanity. When I was in the third grade, my school took me to Universal Studios as some kind of educational situation, which is funny and odd. But it was for me because we learned about the chocolate syrup. We learned about, Bernard Herrmann, all the kind of the presentations at the special effects show, which I would eventually go to work at after Warner Brothers with you guys. It's so deeply, this movie, Hitchcock, is so deeply rooted in who I am and who I want to be as a creative person. Not that I want to model his method of directing. He put a lot of women in a lot of distress. And we're living in different times now. But then also, I don't think it has been said, or it's been tapped on just a little bit, is that Bernard Herrmann is out of this world. The tone of this movie is everything. They say it gave birth to the slasher movie, but it's like, it's Nirvana, it's the Beatles. This movie changes the course of, horror, suspense, movies in general. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can breathe life into this new thing.
And finally, Logan.
Oh man, Psycho is honestly a thrilling movie. Like I came to it, in high school. I remember seeing the trailer for the remake, and the trailer freaked me out, and so I didn't see that until much later, and then it freaked me out for a whole other set of reasons, mostly pertaining to how oddly not good it is. But I think it shows something odd that you could shot for shot remake it and lose kind of what made it work really well in the first place. Because Psycho is just this really cool kind of movie. I mean, I know Hitchcock even doing Psycho was something, it was different than what he had done at that time. He was doing spy thrillers and, it was like people were expecting him to direct a Bond movie. And all of a sudden he's like, I want to do this little movie about this hotel. Like, we're just going to do this for a while. And just, yeah, the performances he gets out of it are really cool. I'm very interested to see what dynamics are kind of carried over from the original into this new version that we're putting together.
Yeah, and I just, before we get started, I just want to point out that the original trailer to Psycho could probably go down as one of the greatest movie trailers in cinema history. Just Alfred Hitchcock trolling the audience of what's going, just him just touring the Bates house and just like criticizing the decor and the furniture and just saying what's going on here and stuff like that. It's almost like he's advertising a comedy movie. It's the greatest thing ever. If you guys haven't watched the original trailer of Psycho with Alfred Hitchcock, go and watch it. It's a gem. But as with all cast of features, we're gonna pretend that this movie never came out in 1960. We never happened. We never had Psycho until today. Until 60 years in 2020, we had Psycho. Who are the actors and actresses who will be part of the cast of this film? Who will be our director? So let's not waste any time. Let's cast to the future. Now, as we cast the futures, traditionally we start from the least important character of our roster to the most important lead character. So we're going to start with private investigator Milton Arbogast, who in the original film is played by Martin Balsam. Of course, Milton Arbogast learns about the disappearance of Marion Crane. He tries to question Lila and Marion's boyfriend Sam about where she went to. Did she take the money? Where did she stay? And he goes eventually to the base motel and tries to find some clues, and probably things will end up well for Mr. Arbogast. So let's cast Milton Arbogast. Hunter, who's your choice for Milton Arbogast?
My choice for the inspector is the coach himself, Kyle Chandler. This is a guy who brings a lot of gravitas to whatever role he's playing, whether it's, as I mentioned before, Coach Taylor in Friday Night Lights, to FBI investigators in The Wolf of Wall Street, father doing the best he can in Super 8, and so many other great films. Kyle Chandler, I think, honestly, for this role, it's somebody that you need someone who's kind of a character actor, not necessarily the leading man, someone who you think can take charge of the situation, who makes you feel safe, and brings a little bit of gravitas to the role, makes you feel like this guy is going to be a hero, much in the way that, spoiler, Marion makes you feel like she's going to be the lead. And both of these characters kind of get the rug pulled out from under them. So that's why, for me, I go with Kyle Chandler for this role.
And Jack, who's your choice for Milton Arbogast?
For Milton Arborghast, so, I mean, the character is a private investigator who's maybe a little bit past his prime, who is doing kind of side investigations into missing persons and things like that. So I picked someone who has played a investigator and is maybe not in the prime anymore. I chose Nathan Fillion. He's played it many, many times through the series Castle. And then again, now with The Rookie, that's kind of what he is. He's an investigator and he's very effective in that part. So I just said, who's played a cop or who's played an investigator and played it well and could fit this role as well. And that's why I went with Nathan Fillion.
And finally, Jessica, who's your choice for Milton Arbogast?
My choice for Milton Arbogast is Mark Ruffalo. The reason why I picked him is because he has a lot of background in working in an investigator type role with things such as Shutter Island, Zodiac, as well as even Spotlight. He can just play the investigative role really, really well and make it believable. And kind of going off what Jack said, I think it is important to have an investigator that seems like he is past his prime just a little bit, but he's still good at his job. And Mark Ruffalo just has that kind of seasoned look about him in his acting choices, as well as just his physical appearance as well, that I think would fit really well for a character like Arbogast. He also can play sarcastic very well, which is kind of like that gruff sarcasm that goes along with a character like Arbogast, just because he's trying to get stuff done and get the job finished.
All right, you three, debate your choices.
It's hard because they're all so great.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's true.
I agree with both of them. Particularly Jess's choice. I think you and I picked our people for the same reasons. I think Mark Ruffalo is a little bit of a bigger name, and it is a little bit of a smaller part. That's the only thing I can think of. So maybe.
I gotta concur there on both points. I think all three of these they hit the same beats where they have that seasonedness to them. You know, a little bit of salt and pepper. As well as having played at least some form of investigator, although in Mark Ruffalo's cases, it's more on the journalistic side than necessarily being a cop. And that's also something where I would kind of hit against him. Not only is he like a bigger name for a smaller part, but he's just a sweet, soft, cuddly bear. And that's why I love him. But for my money, this is a character that when Milton Arbogast comes in, you feel like he's coming in and he's, especially in this classic setup, he's going to be the cop that comes in and like saves the day, which, as I alluded to earlier with like Marion, it's part of Psycho's brilliance where it subverts these tropes. So I feel like you need more of like a hard-edged guy that's going to make you feel like they're going to stop the bad guy and then, of course, fall down the stairs. My issue with Nathan Fillion is, yeah, he has played cops, or he's playing a cop now, and he played an investigator in his previous show. One, that's kind of like him going, just being stuck for tight. But two, Fillion plays such a goofy character in most of these shows, including The Rookie. The whole like joke of the show is that he's an old guy who's playing a rookie cop. And even in his more serious roles, he tends to bring a little bit of a sarcastic edge to him. And that's why, for me, that's the knock against him, for me at least, is that I think that he almost can't help himself coming off a little too smarmy.
Kind of just as a rebuttal for Hunter's case against Mark Ruffalo, yeah, he was an investigator for the journalistic side of things in Spotlight, but if you look at things like Zodiac, he does play kind of like a hard-nosed, cutting-edge kind of cop that doesn't really take any gruff from anybody while trying to catch a serial killer, especially with dealing with Jake Gyllenhaal's character. That's constantly just kind of under the feet of detectives trying to figure out stuff, and he kind of has to keep the investigation moving and going. He was also an investigator in Shutter Island along with Leonardo DiCaprio. So he does have like the cop background of things. I will agree with the point that I think Nathan Fillion might be just a tad too lighthearted for a role like this. But for both he and Kyle Chandler, I also feel like they are very, very pretty men. They're so good looking that with Arbogast, like having kind of like that older seasoned look, that is important, especially since they're not supposed to be like the heartthrob of the movie. But it is hard because all three have background resume work in police roles and stuff like that. I just feel like Nathan Fillion and Kyle Chandler are just a bit on the kind of like a movie cop look kind of thing.
I find that interesting because I would actually, I guess it's just subjective. I think Mark Ruffalo is the cutest of the three, especially right now.
I have his poster on my wall.
Yeah, so
hard eyes.
I was gonna say I might even have to. I feel like you actually believe that as well, that he's the cutest. I think Kyle Chandler, like I mean he's a handsome man, but he's that like hard edged handsome. He's like Clint Eastwood handsome. He's cop handsome, you know, like that's. Yeah, I mean, all these guys are good looking. That's partly why they're actors. But yeah, I mean, as far as just the looks, again, like just looking at them, at these three, I think that Kyle Chandler would be the most hard-edged, tough as nails, almost, you know, weathered sort of cop. And especially at this point, he is the oldest of these three. And he is starting to show his age, and not in a bad way. Of course, because again, he's an actor, so he ages more gracefully than us normal folks. But even so, he is, I think, starting to show, as we said before, that seasoning.
I think the thing that makes it hard for me, especially with Kyle Chandler, and it might just be like what I've seen him in recently, I see him dealing with a lot of like kids and teens. And I feel like Arbogast just has that hardened edge where like you could not see him working like in a group with kids or anything like that.
I saw that point too, because Kyle Chandler I see as kind of more of a family man, like a family community cop type guy. And Arbogast is supposed to be kind of this, not lost soul, but kind of this guy who does his own thing. He's not like some family man who is a cop and also coaches the family softball team or the community softball team or something like that. And I could see Nathan Fillion being kind of a more outcast, more on his own type of guy, which is what I see the character of Arbogast being more like.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Kyle Chandler has played a lot of fatherly roles. I think the interesting thing, though, if you dive into a little bit deeper, is that when he's in those roles, it's sort of that he's playing against type. Like when he is the father figure, it's sort of the badly fit father figure, and his entire journey in each of those is like why he doesn't really work in that context. Whereas Mark Ruffalo is like the world's best stepdad,
right.
and the kids are all right. I mean, I wish Mark Ruffalo was my dad. And I mean, Nathan Fillion, I don't know about dad, but he's definitely everybody's favorite uncle. I don't know. I feel like both of those guys are more like jovial, more lighthearted people than Kyle Chandler for sure. I get a much lighter, warmer feeling from them, whereas Kyle Chandler is a bit colder. And that's why I think that he does get a lot of those sort of roles, because he has the protective side, which comes in handy for a cop role like this. But he's such a good actor that he's able to do roles where the arc is about how he's got the protective side, but can he open up emotionally? This is more of a character role that I think would, he would get to use a bit of his talent. And I think that's true for all three of these guys, is that, it is more of a bit part. And that's another problem, is that for me Mark Ruffalo is an Avenger. Nathan Fillion is the lead of multiple TV shows. And while Kyle Chandler has had some lead roles, they've been in mostly smaller things. He's largely an ensemble player or a character actor. And that's why, for me, I think he also fits this level of role a lot better.
I would apply that to Mark Ruffalo, that Mark Ruffalo is a pretty big star. And so I don't think this part would be quite big enough for his level of stardom. Nathan Fillion is a leading man on TV. We haven't really seen him be a leading man much in movies. So I think that he would be a pretty good, as far as status level goes, a pretty good fit for this.
And that's fair. I mean, yes, Mark Ruffalo is a pretty big name, and like Hunter, you said, yes, he is an Avenger. But I feel like that proves that he can work well in an ensemble because, yes, he might be an Avenger, but I feel like he's not the biggest Avenger. I feel like people pay more attention to like Captain
Hulk
America and Iron
disagrees.
like Captain America and Iron Man and like Thor and all that. So yes, he is, but in the grand scheme of things, he kind of is a background player in this huge ensemble, which it's easy to become part of the background when you're part of a big cast, including people like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. And yes, he might be a pretty big name, but you know, he does do those secondary character roles very well. Case in point, if you look with Zodiac, that's another pretty big ensemble piece. And he's not the biggest character in that movie. He is a big supporting character, but it's mostly focused on Jake Gyllenhaal's character and his investigation and what's going on. And he just kind of pops up every now and then as that gruff investigator trying to keep everything on the right path, even when he can't investigate it any longer. So I understand the concern of that it might be too big of a name, but I still think, especially with a movie like this, with a script like this, it would be something that was intriguing and a challenge for him as an actor.
Okay, that's perfectly on time. Good debates, good discussions. So I think I'll start first on this decision here. I like all your choices. All your choices are very interesting, and I can see them fitting the role very well. With as much as I love Mark Ruffalo, I have to agree with Jack and Hunter a little bit that he might be a little too big on the role. Like, yeah, Milton leaves and Arbogast leaves an impression in the film, but his role is very minimal. He's not on screen that much, and I think I think that would just it wouldn't be using Mark Ruffalo's talents enough. If the character had maybe like even 10 more minutes of screen time, I could probably see it. But it's just the character is so minimal of the amount of time he's in the film. Even though again, Mark Ruffalo is still great. So it's being between Nathan Fillion and Kyle Chandler. And you know, though I have to go with probably Kyle Chandler because even though Nathan Fillion's a good choice, I like Hunter's argument that Kyle Chandler has a look that he may be the guy who could save the day. He may be the guy who could protect you. And he brought up a good argument that Psycho was a type of film that subvert all these expectations. First, with Marion Crane getting killed off, and then with Arbogast getting killed off, you think Arbogast could be the one to save the day and to stop, you know, the killings. But no, he becomes a victim as well, and that would make killing off someone like Kyle Chandler. It would be a really good way to subvert expectations. So I'm going with Hunter's choice for Kyle Chandler. How about you, Erik?
That was a great debate, y'all. This is a really tough call, and Mark Ruffalo is definitely the cutest. I just had to solve that part of the debate. Wow, this really made me think because all three of them are great choices, and Mark Ruffalo has definitely had an amazing career. I feel like around the time he did Collateral, I feel like he would take this role. I just think he's gotten a little too big, and also after starring on that HBO miniseries he just did, and he played twins, I believe. Yeah, I just think he might be a little too big for this. Nathan Fillion, I love that guy with all my heart, but I will not be able to take him seriously in this. I think he'd do it, and especially I think he would definitely do the death scene. And I mean, you're like, I cannot believe someone would dare to kill Nathan Fillion, but it's happening a lot, even in Santa Clarita Diet, because I did not see that coming. But probably I would go with Kyle Chandler because he's not starring in a TV show and he's not an Avenger. And also he fits this role. And if anyone's seen the show Bloodline, I think that's where he would be able to really take this very seriously and have a lot of and enjoy himself. But I feel like after playing as many characters like that, and he can be very, very serious, I think Kyle Chandler's perfect for this role.
All right, Johnny.
All right, so I do this thing where I do my homework before I stop into this thing. And My original choice, I'm so sorry to say, was Kyle Chandler. He rocked it in Date Night. He's a blast. And you know, I love Fillion, but I feel like Fillion is going to be dealing with what Bob Denver had to deal with for Gilligan. He'll be Mal Reynolds for the rest of his life. And the rest of the world is going to be like, hey, Uncharted, until he's old enough to play Sully. You know, Fillion just seems a little too NCIS-y, as does Kyle Chandler. You know, Fillion has this kind of Bruce Campbell kind of attitude to him that I just don't see. But I wouldn't want to make him mad, so I'm going to go with Ruffalo.
All right, and Logan.
Oh, this was a really good debate all around. I'll start up top with Hunter. I liked your initial thing with Kyle Chandler, where it's like, he makes you feel safe. I don't know why I was like, I like that. It's kind of an opening argument. I was like, he makes you feel safe. I liked that. It was like, is he too pretty? Nah, he's cop handsome. That's like a T-shirt somewhere. That's something. But we were talking a lot about his visual look of how he fit in the role, but I was hoping for a lot more talk of performance-wise, what he would kind of bring to the role. And when we got talking about that, it was a lot of how he's a lot better at doing the community cop guy. He can be swarmy a little bit. And yeah, when I think of stuff like Game Night, like, he is super swarmy, and it didn't quite necessarily fit for me. With Nathan Fillion, I kind of agree that he's a bit too jovial, although he is, as Jack put it, very good at playing past his prime. I think that is something he does very well. Honestly, yeah, I kept coming back to Mark Ruffalo with, like, consistently coming back to being an investigator. Yeah, Jess, I wish you had mentioned Collateral, because obviously he was doing the beat cop thing there. So, like, that was definitely a little bit more on the street there. But, I loved has the background as the investigator, can do the gruff sarcasm. Heck, I even like the cuddle bear thing that someone called him at one point, because it's believable that Arbogast, like, he's a PI. He would use that to, like, get friendly with someone, get his info, and then cut and run and leave, and I could see that. So yeah, I think so yeah, if it was me, I don't think it's too big of a star, because it's one of those where it's, he's jumping from doing, supporting roles in Avengers, being in the background really, to being in TV on HBO, to, like, he's jumping around, he's doing a lot, so I don't think it's too big of a role for someone like Ruffalo. So yeah, that'd be my vote, Mark Ruffalo.
All right, so that means we've got a tie between Kyle Chandler and Mark Ruffalo. So, Jack, if you don't mind being our tiebreaker.
Well, between the two, I would have to stand by saying that I think Mark Ruffalo is a bit too big for this part. So go with Kyle Chandler.
All right, so with that, Kyle Chandler wins the round, and Kyle Chandler is going to be our Milton Arbogast for 2020's Psycho. Good first round, everyone. Now let's get to the second round, where we are going to cast Marion Crane's boyfriend, Sam Loomis. Now, in the original, Sam was played by John Gavin. Sam is the hunky, handsome, debonair boyfriend to Marion. Of course, he's an everyday working man, and Marion wants to go run away and elope with him, and that's kind of what leads her to her motivations of running away with all this money and starting a new life. Sam's just the guy that probably every woman just wants to run away with, just wants to live a happily ever after. He's just so handsome, and and when they learn about Marion's parents, Sam is the one who kind of takes charge with Lila to go to base motel and figure out what really happened. So let's start off with Jack. Who is your choice for Sam Loomis?
So I picked Adam Driver, who I currently have a bit of a crush on after I saw Marriage Story. I think he meets exactly what you described. He is a handsome leading man, hunky guy, and yet he's also kind of an everyman, working, approachable human kind of guy. He meets both of those requirements. He's someone who I would say would fall in love with his leading lady, and she would want to go and out and help him and save him, and yet he's also kind of heroic. You know, he goes and he helps and finds out what has happened to Marion. He wants to protect her, and then it's implied that he cares for her sister by the end as well. And I could see Adam Driver being both heroic and a human guy down on his luck at the same time. So that's who I think Adam Driver is right now, and that's why I picked him.
And Jessica, who's your choice for Sam?
I picked Jake Picking for Sam. You probably best know him from Ryan Murphy's Hollywood on Netflix. He played Rock Hudson in that. He's also been in projects like The Way, Way Back, Dirty Grandpa, Patriots Day, Sicario, Day of the Soldado, Blockers. So he literally has just a range of different things on his resume. The main reason why I wanted to pick him for Sam, though, was because of his portrayal of Rock Hudson in Hollywood. He's really good at playing kind of the caretaker, especially when it comes to those that he loves or the person that he's with. He has that great all-American look that I think really fits for a character like Sam, super dreamy, super hunky. But yeah, it's mostly because he can kind of he has the look that he's gruff and rough and tumble, but he plays sensitive and caring very, very well, which I think really works for a character like Sam because he's in pursuit of trying to figure out what happened to the love of his life.
And Hunter is your choice for Sam.
My choice for Sam is John David Washington. I think Sam is an interesting character because, again, like a lot of the roles in Psycho, it's all about subverting tropes and expectations. So Sam is upfront presented as sort of your typical leading man, but within the text we learn, you know, he's got money issues between like his divorce and trying to keep his business afloat, and he's flirting with Marion or not. And it's sort of he's sort of a guy that, you know, just can't quite get it together, and then he ends up playing more of a supporting role and helping Lila and her investigation. For my money, John David Washington is he's just got this sensitive spirit to him. It's hard to quite put a finger on. You saw it in Black Klansman, and if you've been lucky enough to be able to see Tenet, you'd see it there too, where he plays this James Bond type, but with a heart. And even without knowing too much about his character personally, he's able to just kind of make you care not just for him, but for the people that he's trying to help. And I think that that's a really good quality to bring onto a role like Sam.
All right, debate your choices.
Again, they're all really good choices, I feel. I guess like my only concern with Adam Driver is kind of like the point that you brought up with Mark Ruffalo. I think he's too big for this role. He's like fresh off an Academy Award nomination. He's been the main villain in Star Wars, like huge projects like that. And looking kind of at the characters, I feel like with how his career is going and he wants to take more challenging roles, I would feel like he would want to go for a character like Norman over Sam. So it's kind of hard to see Adam Driver in a role as supportive as this between the other two.
See, I don't see the character of Sam as that supportive of a character. In fact, I think he's from the first shot of the movie and he's at the very end. I think he has almost as much screen time as Norman. So I don't see the character of Sam as that supporting of a supporting role, just as the character in general. I don't want to say anything insulting about the Hollywood series, but yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I really didn't care for that, and I mean, he's adorable. Jake Picking has that in his favor. He's cute. He's pretty to look at, but I did not care for that series and did not care for his characterization as Rock Hudson.
I'm not sure if I can agree with his looks just yet. I'm loading a picture now, but it's still buffering around his chin area. This might take a while.
I mean, I adore Rock Hudson so much, and I did not like how he interpreted Rock Hudson as this kind of dumb, sweet but dumb pretty boy.
That's also how it was written, though.
Right, but
I think
yeah.
he's just working with material that they gave him, and even it with his more emotional beats, especially like towards the end of the series, he shows that he has a wide range of emotions, and he portrays them very well just from an acting standpoint. Um, and I mean, as far like John David Washington, I don't have anything bad to say about John David Washington. Like, he's a great actor. I think like between the three of them, it's just one of those ones of I just think Adam Driver is too big of a name, and Norman Bates I feel like would be too juicy of an acting opportunity for him to not want to pursue something like that over Sam.
I gotta agree with that, as well as just Adam. I mean, there's a reason he was the villain in Star Wars, like, and he's got sort of a malevolence to him, whereas Sam is this sort of like down on his luck guy. It's hard for me to say too much about Jake without, like, I've seen him. All right, here's the thing. I was going to say, I haven't seen him in that many things. I'm looking at his filmography, and I realize I've seen almost everything he's been in, and the guy never left an impression on me. And as far as that goes for me, I got to say that means that, you know, I just chalk that up to his acting ability, that obviously in each of his films that he was given an opportunity, he just hasn't stood out. One thing, obviously, is big main role, Rock Hudson. I have not seen that in Hollywood. I have not seen Hollywood yet. So I can't comment on that directly. So what I will say in favor of John David Washington is that he has only had a couple of roles, and he has made such an impact with those roles, to the point where his career, his star is on the rise. I think this is the perfect time for him to grab a role like this. And yeah, for me, like, Sam is a character, as I said, he's this guy that when we see him up front, it's almost like on a metatextual level, he wants to be the leading man. But he's just got all these things in his life that are getting in his way. And I disagree, Jack. I think he does become sort of more of a supporting player in sort of subverting the expectations, because it's Lila who is sort of driving the investigation forward, and then he's there like as her backup and her support. And again, Adam Driver, I see him as both a domineering force and also a little bit more of a malevolent force. Jake maybe is better for a supporting role, but I feel like in an ensemble, he's going to kind of get swallowed and be just forgotten. Whereas I feel like John David Washington will just fill that role, you know, basically with both of your picks. It's like, it's too much, it's too little. And for me, John David Washington is the Goldilocks. He's just right.
I think that John David Washington is so charismatic and is so, you mentioned he's like a James Bond, and the character of Sam is supposed to be, like you said, a down on his luck, struggling kind of guy, which if anybody saw Marriage Story, Adam Driver does that perfectly. He's handsome and and a leading man, but he's very good at struggling and very good at having trouble with personal relationships, like the character of Sam is. Sam is dealing with a troubling ex-wife, and then he finds out this girl that he was in love with is missing, and he's very good at playing tormented while still being a charismatic leading man. I feel like John David Washington, he's James Bond level of charismatic, and I don't think the character of Sam is supposed to be quite that.
I could see that if we learned through the script that Sam's divorce came from him not only cheating but also being somebody that just blows his top consistently, then the Adam Driver Marriage Story comparison would work better for me. But that's why I go for John David Washington, because it's not, when I compare his role in Tenet, what I mean to say there is he's playing what on the page seems like it's meant to be a James Bond type, but what he does with it instead brings a lot of humanity to this role, to a character that doesn't even have a name. He just goes by the protagonist, and yet he is able through that part to not only it could make you care about his unnamed protagonist, but the heart of that film, and I'm trying not to spoil it because I know most people have not seen it and won't for a long time, but it's a very similar situation, I'll say, to Psycho, where he is supporting another woman in her journey. And in that same vein, that's why I feel like it's just this perfect fit where he, like Sam, you would see him and assume he's meant to be this leading man, but he would more naturally fit this more supporting role. And unlike, I think, Adam Driver, and again, it's hard to say for me one way or another with Jake. I feel like it's for him, it's going to go the opposite way. He's just going to get swallowed by all the other talent we're going to stack around him.
Well, and I feel
as
like
he obviously has in all the other things I've seen him in.
and that's fair.
Cool.
Well, and it's kind of going off what you said earlier about how this is a character that's going through a lot and he struggles and he just can't catch a break. That's Jake Asrock Hudson in Hollywood. Like, everybody else around him is getting these opportunities and getting these chances, and he keeps trying to do all these things that he thinks is going to be that next step, and he doesn't get it. And he plays a great supportive character role for his boyfriend in that as well, who is pursuing being a person of color and a screenwriter in the golden age of Hollywood, which was impossible in real life at that time. And so I feel like he fits the role of somebody who's down on his luck and can't catch a break, but also is supportive in somebody with their push and their journey as they're going on. So I feel like, although we haven't seen as much from him in comparison to like John David or Adam, that's not to discount his talent as an actor. And yeah, I just feel like he'd be a good pick for a role like this.
Yeah, I mean, he's great to look at, but I mean, I did not care for his acting in Hollywood at all. That's just where I'm at. And he made the character Rock Hudson so dumb. And I don't think Sam is supposed to be dumb. I think he's supposed to be down on his luck.
That's the character, though, not the actor.
Yeah.
Like, they're two different characters.
Yeah. I haven't seen much else of his work. I'm looking at his IMDb right now. I did see Horse. The only thing I remember him from was the Hollywood series, and I remember it because I just liked it so much. So, yeah.
All right. So good debates again. Pretty much on time. Good concise statements. This is. I mean, as with all the debates here, it's pretty tough to choose. These are good picks. I think, throughout most of the debate, I was swaying towards Adam Driver, because of just his experience in his career. And I think back to the scene where Sam is confronting Norman, and he needs someone who has that intimidating presence to intimidate Norman. Because when you look at Sam and Norman back to back, Sam is kind of like the guy that Norman always kind of strived to be without hanging on the leash, being tugged by his mom. So if Norman was free, like Sam is the type of guy that Norman wanted to be. But I'm looking back. I'm thinking about Jessica's arguments and looking at what type of guy Jake Picking is, and he does sort of kind of have a baby face, but you know what, Jake still has that stature. He still has that classic Hollywood stature that not only females will gaga over, but what a male who's as emasculated as Norman would strive to be. So, and I think, let's see, and then Hunter's pick was John David Washington. Yeah, I mean, as much as like John David Washington, I get John David Washington with me. I think I see more of his sensitive side, and I think someone like Jake Picking could both be sensitive and be intimidating, but I see more John David Washington being a little bit more sensitive. So my choice is to go with Jake Picking, Jessica's choice. How about Erik, what do you think?
That was a great round, y'all. All wonderful choices, and kind of like you, Curtis, I was kind of leaning toward Adam Driver too, because that talking about Marriage Story, I'm like, yeah, he'd really fit the role really well. But I have seen Hollywood, and Jake probably would fit the role, and I do remember his other roles, but I think Hunter won me over with John David Washington, just talking about his humanity and Tenet, even though I haven't seen it, but just talking about, like, he found a way to make an unnamed character humane, and I feel like John does have that talent, especially after Black Klansman, and I'm talking, and the way you described Sam Loomis, I really think John would bring a lot of humanity to this part, and I think I would follow him to the end. Even though it's not a very big part, but I think this would just help him get a star power even further up by being part of an ensemble like this. So, yeah. Hunter's choice, John David Washington.
Okay, Johnny, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are many. Good job, guys. First off, my impulse told me at first Adam Driver. However, the debate on him having this malevolence is just too strong. I know he can. The one thing that I don't, at least part of the debates that I've been a part of, I don't hear a lot of challenging, and I imagine a lot of actors want to get out of their stereotype, try new stuff. But it just doesn't seem like a role that Adam Driver would want or would kind of gravitate to. Jake Picking, he seems too Instagram model to me. He seems that, he's like, what, these abs kind of guy, and to be really quite honest, I think I, like the rest of the world, want to see more of John David Washington. I was like, what's his last name again? How is he? That's right. But yeah, no, he's a baller through and through. So I'm gonna have to go with him.
Okay, and Logan.
Oh, this is another tricky one that I'm still kind of trying to decide in this moment. Hunter, I liked your argument about John David Washington, how he can play a Bond type with a heart. He's only had a handful of roles. Like, I will admit, I'm in that group of people that have not had a chance to see Tenet, but I have seen him in Black Klansman, and he was amazing in that one. I like that you brought up how he's charismatic and can bring humanity to what is in Tenet, a rather nameless role. Jess, I liked your argument with Jake Picking of how he can good at playing a caretaker to someone he loves. How he kind of has those looks. He can look tough and play caring. Because I haven't seen any of his stuff, so a lot of it I was going off of just the argument that you were making. And I really liked the argument that was made where it's he looks like what someone like Norman would kind of aspire to be, or kind of aspire to see himself like. And I like that argument. I kind of see how that would be a potential fit. And with Adam Driver, I like that you brought up the argument that he can be a hero, but also a human who's kind of down on his luck. I do think that he is a better fit for Norman, but I do agree that he can kind of do the struggle well. But honestly, I kind of agree that Adam Driver he's a bit too, he just doesn't feel like a right fit for, I had a marriage that didn't work and now I'm living in the back of a hardware store. I know he obviously is doing I had marriage and it went well, but it's weirdly and now I have to live in the back of a hardware store. Adam Driver seems like he'd be too well off to not have to do that. And with John David Washington, it's also one of those where he always plays as too capable. At least in Black Klansman, he came across as very capable in what he was doing, and I was never too worried about his safety as he was going through it. So it was the argument of Picking with the fact that he was the man that Norman could see and kind of would want to be in a stereotype, that I was like, like that. I like that argument. I like that as a way to kind of approach the character of Sam. So yeah, with that argument, I would have to go with Jake picking for Sam.
And once again, we've come down to a tie between Jessica's choice and Hunter's choice, Jake picking and John David Washington. So once again, Jack, be our tiebreaker. I got a feeling who you're gonna pick.
Yeah, between those two, I would go more with John David Washington. I think Jake picking is still at the pretty boy level, and John David Washington is at the more heroic level. So for me, so between those two, I'll go with John David Washington. I'm waiting for Jake picking to prove me wrong, Jessica.
All right, so we got John David Washington as our Sam. All right, great rounds. Now let's go on to the third round, where we are going to cast Lila Crane, who is the younger sister of Marion Crane. Lila was played by Vera Miles in the original film. She is the younger sister of Marion. She is the concerned one who, after Marion's disappearance, is the one who is gung-ho on finding her, what she's going through, what she's been, what she's up to. And she's, no matter how dangerous this mystery may be, she's full on solving what happened to her sister, because the two of them are so close that way. So let's go ahead and cast Lila. Jessica, who is your choice for Lila?
My choice for Lila is Elizabeth Olsen. The reason why I picked her is simply because of her acting ability. She started off doing thriller and horror movies. Her big break was in Marcy, Me, Marlene. She was then in Silent House, and she can play a woman on a mission very well, but also a woman in distress very well, especially since we're going to get that at the big reveal of Miss Norma Bates at the very end. She also just kind of has that face of, Lila is one that she still hasn't been hardened by the world. She still has kind of like that sweet, innocent look about her. And Elizabeth Olsen, I feel like, especially with her big doe eyes, it just works very, very well for a character like Lila. And she grew up with two sisters. You might remember them. They were twins, the Olsen twins.
Sorry.
So I think that she will, with her acting choices, having that background and knowing like how you would react if your sister were to go missing, she could bring really interesting insight into a character like Lila Crane.
Though we could agree that Elizabeth Olsen has already stepped out of her sister's shadows and
she casts a much bigger shadow, which is good because she has to overshadow two of them now. So.
Yeah. Hunter, who's your choice for Lila?
My choice for Lila is Journey Smollett, who, funny enough, was on Full House with the Olsen twins. She played Michelle's friend Denise back in the day. But my choice is more based on two of her more recent roles, specifically seeing her as Black Canary in this year's Birds of Prey, and her latest role as Letty on HBO's Lovecraft Country, which if you haven't watched yet, do it, horror fans. I picked her for several reasons. One, because I think she's a star on the rise, which makes her perfect for the role of Lila, who, again, there's definitely a theme going on here in my interpretation of Psycho, is all the subversion of these tropes. So Lila seems like she's meant to be the supporting character, and when our leading actress is tragically taken from us about halfway through the film, Lila is the one who steps up and becomes our lead. So I think that Journey has the perfect amount of star power right now to fill that role, because we are assuming that Psycho has never been made, so the film will be full of all of those surprises as we got the first time we saw it. So I think she's the perfect to look like she's getting the second billing, as she did in like Birds of Prey, only to step out of the shadow and take over in this leading lady role, where she takes on this full investigation. Honestly, in a role very similar to what she's already playing in Lovecraft Country. just, looking at real life monsters instead of Lovecraftian ones. So that's why I'm going to go with Miss Journey Smollett for the role of Lila.
And finally, Jack, who's your choice for Lila?
Alrighty, so thus far I've been told to try and cast against types. So leading lady Emma Stone, a real darling of Hollywood right now, has, to my knowledge, never done a straight horror movie. So that was my thinking with this, and it was also in connection with my choice for Marion, which I know we'll get to, but I could see them as sisters. But Emma Stone is our leading lady of Hollywood, and I think she would definitely bring star power to this, and I would be very curious to see her in a horror movie. And the character of Marion, the character of Lila is supposed to take over the leading lady role after the character of Marion is gone, and there's no question that Emma Stone is a leading lady of Hollywood right now. And also, she's about the same level of star. I know we're supposed to pretend like it was never made, that Vera Miles was at when she made Psycho. So that was my thinking in casting the lovely Emma Stone.
Okay, debate your choices.
All right, I'll start this one off because these are all three of my favorite actresses working currently. So this is definitely probably going to be the toughest round so far. That's an interesting point you brought up, Jack, about how she compares to the original actress who played the role, because my first thought is this is a role that maybe is a little too small for recent Oscar winner, big Hollywood starlet Emma Stone. It's something where more the level of, supporting / just breaking out leading ladies, Elizabeth Olsen, Journey Smollett, I could see them fitting into that more. My hit more against Elizabeth Olsen actually is a bit on how you described her, Jess, with the doe eyes and sort of this innocence. I think that she gets cast for that because she has done a lot, whereas Emma Stone has done mostly comedy. We've seen Elizabeth Olsen do a lot of darker films, but she's cast in those usually to be the sweet innocent who either is reacting to or corrupted by those darker things around her. Whereas Lila, on the other hand, I feel that that's more of a Marion role. Whereas Lila is sort of the more world-weary, a little more serious character as she takes over the investigation and takes charge and leads it. And that's why, if we're going superhero to superhero, I got to go with Black Canary over the Scarlet Witch on that one. And so much of what I thought of Journey Smollett for this role really does come from her role in Lovecraft Country, because I think that in that role we see her not only playing a leading lady in a horror project so expertly, where she's not only reacting with the horror and fear, but also with the strength and determination that Lila needs as she's facing this very scary situation. She brings sort of what we described earlier for the investigator, this hard-nosed, hard-boiled, almost an old-school noir detective energy to the role. And that's why I think Journey Smollett is dead on for what we need for Lila.
Well, the main reason why I picked Elizabeth Olsen for this was mainly for her role in Marcy, May Martha. I'm sorry, I had to write it down because it's a mouthful of a title.
Say that 5 times fast?
Yeah, but no. So in that movie, she is the lead, and it's about her trying to find life after she escapes a cult that she's been in since she was a very, very young girl. So the reason why I picked her with that is that, yes, she does have the doe-eyed, innocent look about her, but she knows how to play with darkness in her eyes. Something, you can tell by her eyes that something is off, something's not right, and she is just trying to get to the next step of moving to the next thing. And as much as I love her, and to be fair, I haven't watched Lovecraft Country yet. It's on my list, but the last thing I think I saw Journey in was Birds of Prey. So seeing her as Black Canary, I'm expecting her to just come in those very tight pants and just kick Norman in the face, kick down doors, try to figure out where her sister is.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to the point, I do feel like this might be too big of a role for an Oscar winner, let alone a very recent Oscar winner, because I do believe Emma Stone has kind of stepped out of those supporting roles, and she's taken much more. I think her next movie is going to be, she's the lead in the Cruella de Vil origin story, that if you had I feel like Emma Stone would have been a better fit for this, like maybe right after Superbad, when she was still playing those smaller roles and trying to like break out, and this would be like a meaty role for her then. But for something like this, kind of like trying to challenge herself as an Oscar-winning actress, maybe she would want something more like Marion Crane, just because it seems to be a bit more of an acting challenge.
It would be a bit of a step down, but not enough of a step down that it would be noticeable. I think any leading established, even if they are an Oscar winner star, would jump at a story like this. And this would be a prestigious picture. I mean, it's Psycho. So I'm not too concerned about that. With both of your choices, they're very established in Elizabeth in the Avengers movies and Journey in Birds of Prey. So they're both pretty badass actresses. So like Jessica said, I mean, she would, take on Norman herself. She wouldn't need some heroic guy helping her. She wouldn't need, spoiler alert, she wouldn't need Sam to come in and stop Norman. She could do it herself. I could see both Elizabeth and Journey doing that. And that's great, but that's not what's told in the story. The character of Lila is supposed to be a little bit more vulnerable. She is supposed to be, I don't want to know anything. I just want to know that my sister's safe. I mean, she's not weak, but she's more gentle, I guess is what I'm saying. And I could see Emma Stone portraying that very effectively.
But lest we forget, Emma Stone really held her own in those Zombieland movies, where she and her sister had to like survive. And like, honestly, out of the three, I feel like that's the most badass role about her. And like this, she's protecting a young sister against hordes of zombies. And with Elizabeth Olsen, yes, she was in Avengers movies, and she would have like physical fights every now and then, but she mostly relied on powers where she was doing it from a distance to protect herself and others.
I think we can all agree that all three of these women would kick all of our butts in a fight, and watching them fight each other would be quite a spectacle.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back from that, remove it from the table across the board, because I think we all made good points for that. Because as far as just the establishment, like both Emma, as we said, it's a very big name right now, and this would be sort of taking a step back. Elizabeth Olsen has also become a household name. I mean, she's got her, not only is she an Avenger, but she's getting her own show in the Marvel Universe coming out this year, as well as being, an indie darling. I'm also looking at this from the point of view of the audience, what they're bringing into it and what they're going to get out of it, coming out of it. Because Jack, I found it interesting. You pointed out that this is prestigious. I mean, it's Psycho, but in this concept that we're doing, there is no Psycho. And in the context of when they were originally making this, the role of Lila is something that Vera had to be, kind of convinced to do, because she thought she was getting this like second billing. But that is I think that's why going with this more of a star on the rise, like a Journey Smollett, works, because you subvert the expectations. You're expecting her to be playing the second fiddle, and then she is a leading lady, as we see her currently in Lovecraft Country, where she will be able to then step up into that role. And her role in that, again, translates so well, where it's not enough where she's not playing the same character. It's more that it's a similar arc, where she's facing up against something scary. She is driving forward a lot of the investigation. She's driving a lot of the plot forward, while she still has her male counterpart there as her support and as her muscle, more or less. As to your point, Jack, as you were saying, where Sam sort of comes in, that's also the same dynamic that she has with Major's character in Lovecraft Country. So honestly, for me, that just sort of solidifies it even more, where I know for a fact that based on this role that she's done, she could do, and I think feel very comfortable with this arc. However, this character would be even easier for her to play, because again, it is her facing a monster that is much more real, as opposed to these more, fantastical creatures that we see her in this HBO show.
I haven't seen it.
Highly recommend. It took me a couple of episodes to get hooked, but yeah, and it's the performances that are doing it. I mean, there's a reason that there's been a lot of buzz on this show. It's the two leads. It's Jonathan Majors and more importantly for me, Journey Smollett, she is honestly unrecognizable because I had seen her also in Birds of Prey where, yeah, she did kick a lot of ass. But even more importantly, in this show, for me, she disappeared into the part, and I didn't even recognize her for most of the pilot. It wasn't until like the credits were coming up that I was like, oh, right, that is this same actress. And in that same vein, I could really see her in this role of Lila, just really disappearing into that role. And you would first see her as being more demure and more reserved. And then as she has to step up and lead this investigation, she has to find her sister. I mean, she has the strength to carry the rest of the movie after our leading lady is dispatched.
All right. Good debates all around. These are all very good choices, as always. So I think I'm going to start off by saying who I'm going to pick. And I think I'm going to have to pick with Jessica's choice for Elizabeth Olsen. Here's why. Starting with choices of like Emma Stone. One, I think what Emma Stone and Journey have in common is that they're both wonderful actresses, and they both have enough power to take on the role of Lila Crane. You know, I'm thinking back to the near climax of the film where Lila goes into the basement. She finds the corpse of Norman's mother, and she's screaming, and then Norman / his mother comes out about to kill her, and she's just there. She's just there, like about to get slashed until Sam comes in and saves her. If it were Journey or Emma Stone, I could see either one of them immediately trying to defend themselves and kicking Norman's butt at that moment. I think they're too independent. They're too capable enough of holding their own ground. And then with Emma Stone individually, I think she is too big of an actress right now, coming off on an Oscar winning for her role in La La Land. I think she would seek out more leading roles. Like again, she's about to go do. I think they already filmed it, but she's doing that Cruella de Vil origin movie for Disney. And with Journey, again, it's the whole. She has that independence to her. I don't think. Yeah, she's the type who would take the case, who would go on this mystery, no matter how dangerous it is to find her sister. She's just too capable of defending herself. And I can see Elizabeth Olsen just has that innocence to her, just has that vulnerability to her that she's brave enough to take on this case, but again, she doesn't quite know the danger she's going into. And one thing, Jessica, have you ever watched Wind River? Oh, I wish you brought up Wind River because like a lot of Lila is in that character that Elizabeth Olsen plays in Wind River as well, because she's this headstrong, going into danger, kind of inexperienced person. But yeah. So my choice is Elizabeth Olsen. Erik, what's your choice?
Oh, this is hard. All three choices are absolutely wonderful. I love Lovecraft Country. I mean, and I love how you described her character, Journey Smollett, because of course, watching Birds of Prey and fresh off that, I'm like, I knew it was her, but as she played the role, I'm like, she's amazing. She really just gets into that character, and just like, especially you hear the horror scream. She does that very, very well, especially with the horror that she faces. She does an amazing job. And Emma Stone, I love your points about her and how she like kind of takes over the movie. Journey Smollett does the exact same thing in Lovecraft Country. I feel like the two of them will play the role very well, but I feel like I have to go with Elizabeth Olsen. I think Jess, you just had the better argument. She also fights from far away, and the other two definitely have the skills. I feel like I wish you had brought up Wind River. Thank you for mentioning that, Curtis. It's one of my favorite movies. It's okay. But I'm still going with your choice anyway. I think what you won me over was the the 4 M's, I guess I can call it, because I can't say that title. Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. Okay, I did it. But her role in that, and also I feel like whoever directs this, like the close-ups of her and the vulnerability that's needed for the role, she'll play it very, very well. And she also had one of the most vulnerable characters in the Avengers movies, and she just mastered it. And like, no wonder she's one of a favorite in the films, and she had a very important role and just played it perfectly. And with all the other roles she's done in indie movies, and I think she'd take this role on and take over the movie no problem. So yeah, I choose Elizabeth Olsen as well.
Johnny.
Hey guys, I just want to let you guys know that I'm playing this game with myself about Googling who you suggest. And for Loomis, it was the word topless. So it was Adam Driver topless, you know. So for this one, I went with coat because there's something so stunning about the wardrobe that is Vera Miles in this movie. So let's see what the next word is going to be for the next actor. But I will say this. Emma Stone, super lovely. You know, I have yet to see Lovecraft Country, which I'm super dying to see. The person that I've seen the most, or the person that I can't quite grasp, is Jurnee Smollett, just because she was in that Twilight Zone episode, Birds of Prey. She had a lot to sort of work under the shadow of it, and she just didn't seem like she could wiggle too much out of it. But I do want to see Lovecraft Country, and we have yet to see. But the big thing is, and one of the major factors that I am going with for my choices today, is what would the actors want? Which actor would want it the most? Who would seek it? Whose agent would be like, hey, here's what you gotta do. Let's make some money, kid. And it's really, honestly, it's all about assembling a good cast. And I'm going to have to go with Elizabeth Olsen, dude.
All right. Well, looks like Elizabeth Olsen has won this round already, but Logan, I still want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, this was, yeah, y'all had a good argument all around. Well, Hunter, I liked your argument with Jurnee that, you know, she's played some similar roles. She could do the more world weary. She's more likely to kick down doors to kind of get where she needs to go. But yeah, she comes across as too capable. Emma Stone, I agreed that she was a bit too big for the role. She also feels like she's like you were just Jack. You were making the argument about how Elizabeth Olsen and Jurnee came across as capable and can hold their own in a fight. And in my head, I'm like, but Emma can too. Like I was confused at that because like Emma reads as just as capable, if not more than who I ended up going with, which was Elizabeth Olsen. Because one of the things that got brought up was Jack kept bringing up like using actors and playing them against type, and especially for using what Jess, we talked about Elizabeth Olsen in Silent House. When she does horror, she's the wide-eyed Tim Burton character. She's the one who stands there and just looks terrified the whole time. So seeing Elizabeth be that and then subvert it and get to be capable because Lila is that version, I think that does a good job at subverting the expectation of it a little bit. So I went with Elizabeth Olsen for Lila.
All right, so it's a clean sweep for Elizabeth Olsen, which means Elizabeth Olsen is going to be our Lila Crane. All right, that's a good third round there. All right, let's head to our fourth round. In the fourth round, we are going to cast our secondary main lead, as we say, our victim, who you thought was the main character, but isn't really the main character. It's Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh. Fun fact, this video come out on Monday, October the 5th, but we're recording this video on Saturday, October the 3rd, and October 3rd is the 16 years ago exact date that Janet Leigh actually died. So it was just a coincidence that I scheduled this. I did not schedule it for that reason. It was just a coincidence. I literally found out this Saturday morning. So yeah, spooky stuff. But yeah, Marion Crane is the one who gets victimized in the first half of the film, gets murdered, and she at first steals money that she was trying to put that she was um, supposed to put in the bank for her um, for her agency, wherever she works for her clients, and she runs away with the money, trying to lead a new life with Sam, and things just don't go her way. I mean, it's kind of hinted that she feels guilty about what she did, and she's thinking about going back and facing her punishments, but it's a little bit too late for that. So, Hunter, who's your choice for Marion Crane?
My choice for Marion Crane, I think, is the perfect choice, of course, because she is a major star. She has been the lead of multiple franchises at this point, so which by today's standard just makes her, one of the top people in Hollywood, most well known at least for sure, which will make the death, her untimely death halfway through the movie, that much more shocking. She's an actress who embodies not just the qualities of a leading lady, but of a person that I think is struggling against a system that it's kind of it's against her, where everything is stacked against her. I mean to say, and that is of course Miss Tessa Thompson. She is just an incredible actress, a major name in Hollywood at this point, starring in both film and television. And when that shower curtain gets pulled back and a knife sinks into her, audiences will be shocked and horrified to see such a wonderful talent cut short halfway through the movie.
Okay, Jack, share with us who your casting choice for Marion Crane is.
Okay, so I went with my second favorite working actress today, after Cate Blanchett. America's sweetheart, amazing actress, amazing star, amazing lady, Miss Amy Adams. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Amy Adams as an actress and as a star. What she has that I think the character of Marion Crane has is she's a very good girl, a very likable and lovable girl with just a little bit of an edge that may come out and might make her want to steal some money and go on a runaway. That would shock audiences, but because she is such a likable actress and such a likable, can make her character so likable, that we would get involved with her. We might even side with her. We might understand why she would want to get away from her thankless life in Phoenix and go and be with the man that she loves. She could draw us in and make us be on her side, and then her shocking death would be all the more shocking and devastating because we like her very much. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Amy Adams. And that good girl with an edge thing is what I think the character of Marion Crane absolutely has and needs. So that's why I'm going with my girl, Amy Adams.
And Jessica, who's your choice for Marion Crane?
My choice for Marion Crane is Kate Siegel. Kate Siegel has been a pretty big name in the horror community for a good couple of years. Probably most well known for her projects like The Haunting of Hill House. She was also in Gerald's Game. The main reason why I thought that she'd be a great fit for Marion, though, was her role in Hush. In Hush, she plays a deaf-mute woman, and she has to literally just use her face, her eyes, as her acting tools for the majority of the film. Which I think is very important for a character like Marion. With Marion, she has things to say, but she does a lot of acting with just her eyes, especially when she is driving away, trying to drive to her new life. We focus a lot on her eyes, what she could be thinking, how she's processing things. When she has those moments when she's driving and she hears the scenarios that could be going on, what people are saying about her, it's very important to be able to convey that without being able to have somebody to be speaking with. And it's also very important to have an actress that can carry a movie basically by herself. She showed that with Hush, it's basically her and the antagonist, and she's fighting to survive against this killer that's trying to break into her house. So she is very capable, and she also has that capability about her that I think makes it shocking, even if you know her for horror movies and horror shows. When she ultimately meets Marion's demise, you don't see it coming, but it's also very believable. So yes, my choice is Kate Siegel.
All right, debate your choices.
So I agree. Kate Siegel really brings a lot of good horror movies to life, and she does have a very expressive face. However, I was given this criticism earlier, so I'm going to turn it around. Are we trying to go a little more against type? Are we trying to do someone that we wouldn't necessarily see in a horror movie? I was given that argument earlier, so I'm turning around and using it in the other way. Amy Adams hasn't done a lot of horror.
And she just did Sharp Objects, which was very horrific, and she was very capable in that as well. So I feel like, and she has been picking, I think, darker roles with things like that. So even with that, I feel like with any one of ours, like it's hard to go against type with this one, just because I think any of our actresses has a pretty stacked resume that they've done something darker at one point or another. But Amy Adams has done something very recent that fits with that.
Okay. I'll agree with you there. However, I guess whenever I'm thinking of this part, like, Marion is not in a horror movie until it's too late. Kate Siegel is a horror movie. And I think, so even though I think all three of these actresses have dabbled perhaps in the genre, you know, Kate Siegel, it's like putting, I don't know, Jamie Lee Curtis, like when she was the height of being a scream queen, like as the lead. It's almost too obvious. And I don't know if she tracks as, like, she's obvious as the lead for a horror film, but Marion Crane is not the lead of a horror film. She's the lead of a potential crime movie that's more about like an interpersonal drama, and she just takes a wrong turn and accidentally ends up in a horror movie and drags everybody else into it with her. Amy Adams, I think, Jack, is an interesting choice for this role. My major issue is I see what you were trying to do there, where you were saying, like, yeah, she's sweet, but she's got a little bit of an edge. Honestly, I gotta say that most of the time when she tries to play that edge, those are her least effective roles for me. I mean, the lady literally was the embodiment of what a Disney princess is in Enchanted, and you know, later cast as Lois Lane, again, just this embodiment of being a strong woman. So it's hard for me to see her on several levels as Marion, because Marion is someone who is desperate, who is scared, who is on the run. And for me, I got to say, you know, I see Tessa not only fitting that, but I think what she and Amy have in common is they'll have that, what is so impactful in the role of Marion, they'll have that shock value of, this is our leading lady, you know, this is a major actress. I mean, Tessa Thompson is a huge Hollywood name by this point. I mean, after Dear White People, her career just exploded. She's had multiple franchises between Creed, Marvel movies like Thor and Avengers. She's been the lead of a Men in Black, and she's also been in so many other great films. Sorry to bother you. If you haven't seen it, watch it right now. Annihilation, so great. Westworld, of course, on HBO. Another, like, her credits are so huge. Amy Adams, I feel like while she's also very big, she is maybe too big, and like on this scale of, like, she might go just above Tessa, to where I don't know that she would want to do a role where she's only in the first half of the movie and then they kill her off.
That's why it's all the more shocking. That was the very narrative for Janet Leigh, was a huge star, and they killed her at the half hour point into the movie. That's the whole that's the whole tactic with that movie, is to take a huge star, be her leading lady. It's her story. It's about her. You sympathize with her. You question her. You get super, super involved with her, and then she's gone. And that's what I think Amy Adams could effortlessly do. She's definitely a leading lady. And in terms of her being too sweet, like Giselle in Enchanted, she has an edge. Even Giselle has some spunk to her. And even when she plays these sweet characters, like a nun in Doubt, there's that underlying inner strength, that inner edge to her. And if you want to see if she can be actually more blatantly criminal, American Hustle, she's a con artist.
That was one of them when I was saying where she tries to play a tougher role that it doesn't ring as true to me. American Hustle is not one of my favorite David O. Russell movies. But yeah, and again, I concede that, like, as far as the star power person being the surprise kill, I think Amy and Tessa both hit that. My argument there is that Amy Adams is maybe too big to just be cut out that early, whereas Tessa, I think, rides the line where she's like a big name, but she would still accept a role where she is cut out halfway through the movie. More so, though, now I'm thinking about who we ended up picking for Lila Crane. I really liked Jess's pick for Elizabeth Olsen, great actress. And if we're taking that into consideration now, which I think we should, I think that as much as I do like Amy Adams for this part, I think that she and Elizabeth Olsen are almost too similar. You want a little bit of closeness, and you know, because they are sisters, but you don't want the two characters to come off as like a carbon copy of each other. Like, we just killed off, you know, the one sister, and then we've replaced her with essentially the same character. And for me, I think that they might be a little too similar, and not just look, but like acting style, the way they would embody their characters. I mean, at least Kate and Tessa would give a little bit of variety and show you that there is a big difference between these two sisters.
My only really argument that, because again, I love all these actresses, with Tessa, she, I think, is too capable to the point that I think that she would react almost like Rihanna's Marion Crane in Bates Motel, where you see it's happening. She's getting into the shower. She knows something's wrong, and she's like, nope, I'm out of here. And then she leaves before anything happens. Spoiler alert. But it's also one of those things of, even if she's in the shower and Norman is there, Tessa, I don't see her really as a victim, just because she's Valkyrie in the Thor movies. Like, she knows how to take care of herself and like really kind of defend herself when it comes for it. And yes, like, I understand your concern with like Kate Siegel, you know, we're used to seeing her in horror movies. However, the horror movies that we've seen her in, she has always been the final girl. Even if you see her in a horror movie, you're expecting her to survive, which I think having her be killed off is very shocking in something like this. But even going back to like saying, you know, she doesn't realize she's in a horror movie until it's too late. Even with Hush, like, up until the moments that she comes face to face with this killer, which is a good like 25-30 minutes into the movie, because of her hearing loss, she is not aware of there's a horror movie happening right outside her window, and she is not aware. She's staying focused on her work. In real life, Kate Siegel is not deaf, so she knows that all this is happening on the outside, but she's still able to bring forward a great performance of the unsuspecting would-be victim. And then once she realizes it and it's too late to find help, it's all about her trying to survive. So I think just with the trope of like, we're used to seeing her as the final girl, to finally see her in a movie like this where she is killed off will be all the more shocking.
Actually, I'm glad that you brought up Hush, because she does play that very well. Great movie. But something else that we do see her in, that we do see her fighting back. That's a major part, especially the second half of that movie is all about her fighting back her attacker. So I don't think that that necessarily is a knock against either Amy or Tessa. In fact, I think that seeing any of these strong women taken out so surprisingly, so early in the movie, that's kind of where that's where the surprise happens. You know, this feeling of being capable and that they're strong. I mean, Marion should feel capable. She's meant to be this leading lady. It is supposed to be a major shock when she gets taken out. And that's, for me, why I think of Kate. I'm just like, oh, we're in a horror movie. But it's not until we lose Marion that we really, outside of marketing and, of course, knowing that you're going into it, that we know we're watching a horror movie. And that's why Amy or Tessa, for me, I think work a little bit better in the role.
The other thing that Amy Adams
wanted to say one more thing about Kate is just all of her work is with her spouse, Mike Flanagan. And I know he's going to be your director pick, so I see what you were going for there with the two of them. But I just wanted to put a little button on that as well, that, you know, while Jack and I, we're going for major Hollywood starlets for this part, I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from Kate Siegel. She is a really good actress. I love all of her work in these horror movies. However, her work, at least up to this point that we know of, is, I hesitate to say it, but for lack of a better word, dependent on her working relationship with her real-life partner. And so, if for any reason that wasn't the dynamic, I wonder if she would still be able to bring that same magic, working with a different director. If that makes any sense.
She's
Sorry,
done it
Jack,
before in projects
I cut
like
you off.
she's done that before in projects like Let's Go Down, Hot. So she has done other projects outside of what she does. I think she works with her husband a lot because they like working with each other and they know what they can pull from each other. So she does have a career outside of just what Mike Flynn again is due. We've matured.
I understand that, but you know, move on.
You're not the same kids.
Especially
hold on. We're recording again. Hold on.
All right, I'm back now. I'm back.
Sorry, can you pause it for just 1 second, Curtis, please?
Okay.
So just with marketing in 2020, I think it's still going to be a surprise having your main character who you think you're going to be following through the rest of this movie be killed the way that she is. So I think that shock is still there, but I feel like we could still market it as a horror movie. So I don't think that's a knock against Kate Siegel, just because I think people will be expecting it to be a horror movie.
Well, my last point on Amy Adams is that I feel like the character of Marion Crane needs to be not just a big star and a leading lady, but she needs to be pretty endearing. You need to sympathize with her enough that you can almost get behind her stealing this money and going on this journey. You need to get so involved with her and like her enough that you almost side with her, even though she's committing this crime. That's how endearing the actor and the character need to be. And Kate Siegel, and Tessa Thompson, they're great gals, but I don't know if I haven't seen enough of their work to know if they could be that endearing a character or play that endearing of a character.
Okay, good debates. I'm gonna start off with Logan first. Logan, what do you think?
Oof, this is a tricky one. I mean, because it is hard picking a faux leading lady, as it were. I'll start off with Hunter. I liked your argument with Tessa, where it's like, especially with how she has been the lead in so many franchises lately, to have her in this and then suddenly kill her off would seem like a shock, because going in, you'd almost inherently be like, cool, so this is Psycho 1, and she's going to be there for however many 2. It's going to be how she goes. Yeah. And she'd be believable with, oh, this is going to be a crime movie. Cool, I can believe that it's going to go that route. Katie Siegel, I like the argument that she acts very well through her eyes. I was a bit worried with the argument that she might make it a bit too horror too quickly, but Jess, I love the counter argument, but like, yeah, but in horror, she's the final girl. So if you kill her off early, like, it's still subverted. I was like, okay, good. Yeah, that takes that out of there. And then with Amy Adams, that she is the big star. We like her, so that's good right off the bat. We inherently are like, I want you to succeed because I like you in stuff. You know, it's like, you're a Disney princess. I want Disney princesses to succeed. How she's a good girl, she has that bit of an edge. I did like the argument, though, that Hunter made, where it's like, if we're going with Lila, that though she might be a little too similar to Amy or to Elizabeth Olsen, and very much seeing like, yep, that's. I mean, heck, I could almost believe in a movie if you were you could have Elizabeth Olsen playing a younger version of Amy Adams. I could see that almost potentially working. So yeah, this was honestly a really tricky one. At the end of the day, though, I liked the argument more that like, while Katie Siegel does make it believable as horror, like, I like the feeling of Tessa Thompson a little bit more, though, that it starts off feeling like a crime movie. And I think Tessa kind of brings this street attitude of like, oh, I can steal this money and just get away and it's not going to affect me at all. And I'll be able to kind of get away with it and go from there. Yeah, after honestly a lot of internal debate with these, yeah, I think I have to go with Tessa Thompson for my vote.
Okay, so this one has been a really really tough first, but I think I'm confident with my choice on this one. I think I'm going to have to go with Jack's choice for Amy Adams. I think Jack brought up a lot of good points, mainly with again, going back to this movie, Psycho being known for subverting expectations. Seeing how Janet Leigh was first perceived as the main star of this film and the main lead, and the shock that it came that she got axed off in the first half hour of the film. I think today that would be just as impactful if we got someone like Amy Adams, because Amy Adams is seen as a real driving force, leading lady nowadays. But to see her just get axed off in the first half hour and to shift, like, let's say we got Elizabeth Olsen as our Lila and to shift into Elizabeth Olsen would be jarring, but would be very unique to a lot of audiences and would throw everybody off guard, and it would leave something with a lot of people. I don't think like someone like Tessa Thompson or Katie Siegel would leave that much of an impact, but with Amy Adams, I could see that. So my vote is going to go to Amy Adams. Okay, so Erik, what are your thoughts?
Oh my. Out of all the rounds this might be the hardest one. I love all three actresses. It would be a crime to kill any of them halfway through. So all three of them are perfect for the part. But I think the one that would just really hit the most out of all three would be Amy Adams. Because I'm like, yeah, killing is a crime, I know. But but how dare you kill any of them is really what I'm saying. For whoever we choose as Norman Bates. But Amy Adams and everything we have seen her in, she just captures your heart and everything. Kate Siegel and Tessa Thompson can definitely do that. Tessa Thompson, though, if someone was to walk in on her in the shower, I cannot unsee her as possibly a robot or a god. So I can see her immediately grabbing that knife and killing Norman Bates in seconds. Kate Siegel, like, really my choice was between Amy Adams and Kate Siegel for a while. It's just, I feel like even whoever we choose, Kate Siegel would still find a way in the movie if we choose Mike Flanagan's director. It's just out of the two, though, Amy just has I guess more star power, and seeing her in everything that we've seen her in, it would just hurt the most to see her go halfway through the movie. And I can definitely see it marketed today where she is the star, and then it's marketed in a way where we want to follow her. And then all of a sudden she's gone. You're like, wait, this movie isn't starring Amy Adams? It's like watching Hereditary all over again. I thought the movie's gonna be about the little girl, and spoiler alert, what happens to her? You're like, it's not about her. Oh my gosh. So I feel like Kate Siegel, if I choose Amy Adams, Kate Siegel will still find a way into this movie if we choose Mike Flanagan. But for Amy Adams, I think her death would hurt the most. So I choose Amy Adams.
Okay, and before I go to Johnny, I want to add one more thing. I think because we already got John David Washington, Sam, and of course, we got John David Washington. There's a little bit of an age gap between Amy Adams and John David Washington. But I think if we pick Amy Adams, I think, the decision's not final yet, but I think what will really help Amy Adams' case is probably also her age. The fact that in this version of Psycho, she's going out with a much younger man, and she sees this as kind of an interesting new adventure for her life, and she doesn't have to get stuck at this dead end firm job anymore and go with this strapping young man. I think that kind of adds to the Marion Crane character for this version. But well, let's go to Johnny. What do you think, John?
Who's ready for another tiebreaker? I'm gonna have to go with Tessa, baby. Mainly for the idea. There's so much to be said that obviously when you cast a movie that has a mixed race, you're gonna have a racial element. You will have the semblance of why she's working at a job that she feels that she needs to steal from, and the desperation of being pulled over by a cop or any of that other stuff. That is super, super crucial in picking something. And, Kate Siegel, I don't know her enough. I wish I did, but, I don't see it in my research of Google. But then also, Amy Adams seems too strong and too not world weary, but she seems like she plays characters, or she seems like she'd be the kind of person who knows what she's getting into, and it's not in her universe. But Tessa Thompson, her eyes, I can hear the internal monologue, and when I think of her, bless Michael B. Jordan and bless everybody else in Creed, but she sells the hell out of that movie. And, just her eyes and her everything that she could do. It's Tessa all the way. These are
All right. So we got a tiebreaker between Tessa Thompson and Amy Adams. So Jessica, would you be kind enough to break this tie for us?
Amy Adams.
Amy Adams. All right. That was quick. All right. So we got Amy Adams as Marion Crane. All right. So let's move on to our what is this? Our fifth round. And this is our big character one. This is going to be casting of Norman Bates. Now, if you watch the movie, you don't know where Norman Bates is a victim, or is he is he a suspect? What is his story? He's a mystery. He's a caretaker of this motel. He's a little bit off edge. You don't trust him, but you don't want to accuse him. You don't want. I mean, a lot of people would accuse him right off the bat, but his type of personality, he could be an innocent, but he could be hard edged. That's just the wonderful thing about the Norman Bates character, played wonderfully by Anthony Perkins. So let's start off with Jessica. Who's your choice for Norman Bates?
My choice for Norman Bates is Andrew Garfield. I know that we were suggested not to say this, but I'm still gonna say it. His look does fit very well for a character like this. So far, it's not even just his whole look. What I mainly am focusing on is his eyes and eyebrows, and that really helps sell a character with their acting as well. With Norman, it's literally depending on the angle you look at him. If he's looking down at you and you can see there's that hard edge with his eyebrows, it's very dark, it's very sinister. But when he's up, he's very boyish and he's very unassuming, which I think is very, very important for a character like Norman. We are supposed to be completely blown away when we find out that Norman is actually the psycho in the title of Psycho. And Andrew Garfield not only has the look, but he also has the acting chops for it. He's been in tons of different Academy Award nominated movies, such as The Social Network, Hacksaw Ridge. He's been in other things like Spider-Man, where he kind of really gets to stretch his acting abilities, especially with the death scene of Uncle Ben. But the main role that he had that I thought really fit well for a character like Norman Bates is Under the Silver Lake. He is the main actor in that, and it's kind of like a film noir, and he's investigating. You don't know, does he know more than what he's saying? You don't really know what his character's up to. You don't know if it's all in his head. You don't know if there's outside forces working against him, which is essentially Norman Bates in a nutshell. So I think he would be a great choice for this just because of his boyish good looks. He has that great unassuming kind of like, yes, mother, kind of mama's boy vibe about him. But when he turns on that screw where all of a sudden he's gone over the edge and now he's Norma, it's also very believable because he has these great explosive acting scenes that is perfect for a character like Norman.
Okay, Hunter, who's your choice for Norman Bates?
My choice for Norman Bates is Mr. Jack Quaid, son of Hollywood royalty Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan. First came onto the scene in the Hunger Games, but he has made a name for himself as the lead in Amazon Prime's The Boys, and will be making, and nephew of Randy Quaid, and will soon be making his way to horror in the 5th installment in the Scream franchise. And largely, we've got to go based on his acting ability from The Boys, where he plays the heart of that group. It's a bunch of hard-edged people, and very recently in the show, his character was compared to, he's the canary in the coal mine. He is the heart that keeps everybody down to earth, and it's the subversion of that I think is what makes him so perfect for Norman. Norman is just this sweet little mama's boy who's happy to help you get set up. He can bring your bags in from the car to the hotel, and then once you, and to the point where you're going to feel safe, you're going to feel safe enough to take off your guard, literally take off your shield, your clothes, and get in the shower, and then right when you least expect it, he's going to get you. So that is why I'm going with Jack Quaid.
And Jack, who you got for Norman Bates?
Well, I went with someone who I think has the qualities of both Andrew and Jack, and that is Ben Platt, a mostly stage musical theater actor, someone who you think is very likable, very sweet, very musical, very gay, and then he might come up to you unassumingly, and yet there is a very dark side to him, as seen in some of his stage work. He's someone who, at face value, could come up very sweet and very musical and very stagey, and then could absolutely have a dark side to him. And it would be all the more shocking to fully bring out that dark side, as was the case with Anthony Perkins. That's who Anthony Perkins was known as this sweet stage actor of the 1950s who, in his first leading role, plays this psychotic serial killer. So, yeah, that's my thinking, is that Ben Platt would have the same kind of narrative in playing the role of Norman Bates.
All right, folks, debate your choices.
I'll kick it off. First off, again, 3 actors that I really like. Jack, I love Ben Platt. I frankly, though, don't want to see him in anything where he doesn't sing, because it's a waste of his beautiful voice. And singing Norman, I just don't know if I'm ready for that. But more importantly...
They're turning everything into musicals these days.
That's true. A Psycho musical would be
It wouldn't
awesome.
surprise me at this point.
Just wait. It's coming. When they do it on Broadway, I will
We were here
back you up.
first at the
I will
ground
back you up
floor.
that Ben Platt is great for it. But... give me a moment here, because this is a little bit of a complicated argument. When I was talking about the Crane sisters, Johnny, I'm glad that you brought up a point that I was ready to get into, but didn't necessarily want to delve into so much myself. Just part of my thinking of going for black women for the role, especially when Marion was, a scene where the black woman is pulled over by a cop is going to be very impactful, especially in 2020. Likewise, Jack, you point out Ben Platt being very gay, and I worry a little bit about putting that forward as Norman Bates, in that it can be misconstrued to that surface level, that part of his personality is a part of his mental affliction. And I think had this been made in the 1960s, and I think that I think that's honestly like a little bit on the level there, especially once you have him, like it's a cross-dressing killer. And so I think that I think it walks a tightrope, and it almost plays into a dangerous area, to confirm some very wrong-headed thinking for certain people. And so that, for me in particular, would be a little bit of a worrying reason to cast him for the part. Andrew Garfield, I think, is a very interesting choice, Jess. I honestly, I'll be straight, I could see it. But I think the reason that I see it so obviously is because, sort of like Adam Driver, I think you see this darkness on him. You brought up him in Spider-Man. Literally, they got him for Spider-Man when they wanted to do a Dark Knight for Spider-Man. They were trying to do a dark take on that. And I think that across many of his other roles, he just carries this, not necessarily the malevolence as we described for Adam Driver, but this darkness, like he's got a weight on him. And so I think that he's not necessarily the unassuming boy next door that Norman presents as. Whereas Jack Quaid, to me, he is literally the son of Meg Ryan, the girl next door. Like he is the sweet all-American boy, who you just don't see it coming. And for me, that is Norman Bates. He is the killer that whenever they talk about it on the news later, everyone's going to be like, he was always very sweet, and we just never saw it coming. And that is, for me, out of these three, why he fits the bill perfectly.
But lest we forget, he's also the son of Dennis Quaid, who can play a pretty mean villain, and he looks more, I feel like he has more of a villainous look to him because he just looks more like his dad to me. I understand the concern. It's those eyebrows. They depending on how you look at them, Andrew Garfield can be pretty menacing. But again, if you see him in pictures or in interviews where he's not using his eyebrows and not furrowing them as much, he does look like the boy next door and very charming. And I think that was also kind of a decision based on the director with Anthony Perkins. It's if you just get him at the right angle or you direct him just the right way, he has that boyish look, but he also has that very, very scary look to him when the time comes. And yeah, just kind of going back to Andrew, with Amazing Spider-Man, yes, it's supposed to be a little bit of a darker take, but I feel like he's not the darker part of that movie. He plays kind of like the boyish type of character very well. I think Logan and I have had this discussion where he's like, he was just too cool to be Peter Parker, but he cool in like the sense that like he's fun. And so he can really play that boyish side to it, but when he needs to, just because of the caliber actor he is, he could kind of turn it on its head. And really the only argument I really have against Ben Platt, very talented. I've honestly only seen him, I think, in two things. I think I saw him in Pitch Perfect and The Politician, and he's very baby-faced. He's very young-looking, I feel like. I could see this being almost like Bates Motel, where it's Norman before anything bad really happened. And it's also, I think, maybe clouding my vision because I've watched The Politician. Yes, he's the protagonist, but you don't like him. Like from the get-go, like in The Politician, he's very much an antagonistic protagonist, if that makes any sense. Like you want to see him succeed, but you really don't like him because he's very like slimy and soulless. And I feel like, no, thank you, anti-hero. And when you see that, I think just like people who might know his work and what he's doing now, they're going to assume that something's up with him and something's just a little bit off, where with a character like Norman, we're supposed to be shocked by it.
Another reason that I chose Ben Platt is that he is a known and established actor, particularly in the theater realm, but he's not as established as Jack Quaid and Andrew Garfield are. So I feel like that would be in his favor in playing this character that we don't know that much about him. We might have seen him in Pitch Perfect, or the TV show The Politician, or we might have seen him on stage, but that's about it. And going back to, I know we're not supposed to pretend like it was ever made, but that was the same narrative with Anthony Perkins, is he was known, but he was not a leading man by any means when he played Psycho. And I wouldn't put Ben Platt at leading man status yet. Now, if he were to be cast as Norman Bates, I think he definitely would.
That's interesting, Jack, because, I mean, the guy literally, did he not win a Tony for Best Leading Man? And he does have a film franchise under his belt. He wasn't the lead in that, but he not only has a film franchise in Pitch Perfect and several other supporting roles, but also a lead role in a television show. I'm just, if you're talking about like more of the unknown, I mean, that's easily, like, just empirically, that is Jack, because most of his roles are either small parts. He's done a lot of voice work, and it's not, he's literally had one show now where he's been like a major role, and it's only in its second season. And you know, soon, like he's a guy who's like a star on the rise. I think, you know, I think we're going to see him have a long and successful career. But if you're talking about who's the least known to the general audience, he definitely fits that bill. And I gotta agree with you. You know, if we're looking at how Anthony Perkins was cast for that role and comes into it, he's even more unassuming because we don't bring any baggage with to him. That's another reason why I think that Jack Quaid fits a little more over Ben Platt or Andrew Garfield, because both of them, especially Garfield, they have such a filmography, such a list of credits behind them, that the audience comes in feeling like they know something about them, whereas part of the allure and the interesting thing about Norman is that we really just don't know anything about him, and we don't get him, so much so that the original film feels the need to explain it to us in a lengthy monologue at the end. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with your point, but not that Ben fits it. I think that it's more that Jack fits that unknown star quality.
I don't know. I mean, Jack has a lot more credits, and he's, as you were saying, he's a child of golden era.
He's very hot right now.
Very hot right now, and he's the son of
so hot right now.
huge stars. So
I don't know, man. I mean, everybody, like, Dear Evan Hansen is you know, probably second only to Hamilton as far as you know, popular consciousness, as far as, you know, Broadway, and that's not nothing for a musical to break out of just like the musical theater world and to be known in the popular consciousness. And as I said, on top of that, he had a trilogy of, you know, successful films. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm looking at their filmographies myself right now. I think they're about equal as far as like what they've done as far as, you know, number of parts, but as far as leading or main roles, I think Ben Platt is leading him. And I would say even further, he is better known to people. And then, of course, either way, Andrew Garfield quadruples or tenfolds that, because, I mean, again, the guy was Spider-Man. He was in The Social Network, a very big movie. Hacksaw Ridge, another huge film. And, yeah, you know, I think that his profile is maybe like a little too big. Like, he's not a bad pick for the part if we were doing a remake, but the idea that this is the original, he's a little too obvious and on the nose for me.
Now, I will say that, yes, he does have a stacked resume. I feel like that just adds to Andrew Garfield's value as a performer, because it proves that he's had a lot more chances to kind of hone his craft and be able to make good choices as an actor. Yes, he was in The Social Network. That was 10 years ago. Amazing Spider-Man, that was almost 10 years ago. Hacksaw Ridge was about 4 or 5 years ago. But he's been doing a lot of smaller movies. He's been doing a lot more indie stuff because he wants the acting challenge. And really just seeing his performance in Under the Silver Lake, not a huge like blockbuster movie, but I think he picked it because of the script and the character, and seeing a role like Norman and knowing that he could really like go all over the place with different emotions and really challenge himself as an actor with what he's learned will just give the best performance. And I know it's hard to say because we have to pretend like it was never made, but let's pretend like this was never made and we're casting like we do in 2020. Andrew Garfield, yes, he has a stacked filmography. That doesn't go against him. If anything, makes him more valuable. And the fact that, yes, he was Spider-Man, but he's been a little bit more on the quiet side in comparison to especially Jack Quaid, who I feel like is everywhere now, and even Ben Platt, where it's like Ben Platt might not be doing movies, but he has a major Netflix show right now with Ryan Murphy attached to it and Gwyneth Paltrow. So just with how we do things in 2020, I feel like with him, he can do the role, but it's also somebody that we know but we haven't seen in a while, and maybe we'd be happy to see him kind of making a comeback.
I can't see Norman Bates as a comeback vehicle. I don't think someone would seek out Norman Bates as a comeback vehicle, especially if it had never been made before.
No, well, that's not saying that it's supposed to be marketed like that, but Andrew Garfield as an actor with the roles he's been picking, especially with Under the Silver Lake, it's an acting challenge to him. I think that's more what he'd be focusing on, not if it will make him a big star again.
Okay. Really good round so far. We'll start off with you again, Logan. What's your thoughts?
That is a tricky one, so much so that I have a special guest judge myself here who's kind of helping me go through these notes and make sure I can kind of pick the right person for the role. Well, I'll just start up at the top. Hunter. I thoroughly enjoyed I liked all the choices. That's kind of the thing across the board. Y'all have been picking really good people the whole time. Jack Quaid, I like the idea that he has a sweet face, but he gonna get you, as you put it. Could be the killer you don't really see coming. How he's been doing some of the small roles. He's unassuming and doesn't have the baggage of credits, as you put it. Jess, I like the thing that he has the boyish look. But has been an Academy Award-winning stuff, can go from a good guy on the surface, but kind of carry that weight on his shoulders. Okay, you got an opinion too? Okay. And then with Ben Platt, that he can be very sweet and unassuming, but then can kind of snake in there and kind of say something that is, that, and kind of just get that point in that really, really is aggressively kind of the hostile or mean kind of with what you would say with some of his other kind of things. In looking at pictures of the three as we were going across them, I think that I think Ben reads as a little bit too young. I know the show he's doing on Netflix, he is in high school, or at the very least college. So I think Norman needs a little bit more life experience sitting on his shoulders for that. And maybe it's just me. When I look at Jack, like, yeah, he has that sweet face, but he like if you were to show me a picture of him and be like, yeah, he snapped, it'd be like, yeah, it tracks. Like, just there's something about him I don't quite know. Whereas Andrew Garfield, I think I'd be a little bit more. Yeah, it's the forehead lines. It's the fact that he already has these very pronounced lines defined there in his face. Whereas with Andrew Garfield, like, because in the photo I have of him, the only real lines that we have that he has pronounced around his face are these laugh lines right here. And if someone really has just those, like, the biggest ones you see are these laugh lines. And honestly, if I'm going into the theater and I see Andrew Garfield as Norman Bates, knowing that he was Spider-Man, I'm going to come into this assuming that Marion is going to meet Norman and maybe have to help him through his emotional journey of getting past the trauma of his mother, or something, maybe that she's the psycho of the title and she's got to help him and he's going to help her get out of crime and this and that. And then he, stabbed her in the shower. Spoiler alert. So yeah, looking at the three on there, Andrew Garfield just felt like a really good, solid pick to me.
Okay. Man, we got to talk about all these choices. I can see any one of these actors in this role, but if I'm going to go my gut, what feels right to me, I like Jack Quaid, I like Ben Platt. I'm gonna go to Andrew Garfield. I know it does sound obvious, but I think when Jessica said it, like what they did with Anthony Perkins in that movie, with different camera angles. Whenever his face was like upright, you see this innocent boy, this likable, charming guy. But then whenever he was punched, whenever he's looking down, it felt uneasy. It felt threatening. It felt claustrophobic, and I think you will get that with Andrew Garfield. He just has that look. When you look, that same look when you look at him upright, you see this innocent boy, but whenever he's punching or whenever he's over you, it's sort of intimidating. And I think the beautiful thing about Andrew Garfield as an actor, he could go either way. He could be intimidating, he could be heartwarming, he could be sympathetic, he could be scary, he could be intense, he could be lovable. And I think that's what you need with someone like Norman Bates, what Anthony Perkins is the character. So I'm gonna go with Andrew Garfield. Erik, what are your thoughts?
Another really tough round. Great round. All wonderful choices. I could see all three of these actors in the role, but if I really had to pick, just after the arguments, I got to go with Andrew Garfield as well. I just really think I think when I heard the word, it would be a challenge for him. The words that would be a challenge for him because he does keep taking on different roles, and I got to applaud him for that. Ben Platt, I feel like Hunter made the perfect argument for him. I need to hear him sing. Or at least sing something in the soundtrack or something. But yeah, I think he definitely would have the dependence of his mother, and he definitely would do a wonderful job with the part. It's really not even who is like worse for the part. It's just, I just really think Andrew, I could just definitely see him taking this on. And Jack Quaid, he definitely would show like the fear, like, cause he's been showing that throughout the entire show of The Boys very well. And that's what I love. I think like he would definitely be perfect on the part as well. It's just Andrew Garfield, I think, would really take it even further, and whoever would choose as director would just take a lot of advantage, since Andrew's worked with so many different filmmakers, like a lot of filmmakers are working with him. So I think he would be up to any challenge for Hunter again. I think out of all three choices, Andrew Garfield, I think, is perfect.
Okay, I think we have an obvious choice, but I still want to hear Johnny's thoughts.
I'm going to have to go with the 20th president of the United States, James A. Garfield. Mainly for the fact that there's a couple things. That one, for Ben Platt, I don't see any kind of side of him twisting in any way, story-wise or not. So there's something to be said of the world wariness that is Norman Bates, and I don't think he's got it yet. I think down the line, this actor will try to go for those kind of roles, but I don't see it in his trajectory. As far as Jack Quaid is concerned, I need to see more of him too. We have to see how The Boys turns out for him career-wise. Would he do something like this? Would he want to do something like this? And as far as the Johnny search game, for Marion, we had Marion, whoever the actor was, driving, because that was a scene. And for this one, it was turtleneck. And he fills the turtleneck so well. We won't shoot on Mondays, and we can pay him in lasagna. But then again, he also dated Emma Stone. So had we cast her, that could have been some weird kind of tension there. Yes, BoJack, 1000% BoJack. But yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go with the Xerox of this character. I know we're not supposed to look like him or this or that, but you put those two together. This guy, and not only that, telling Jesse Eisenberg he's gonna sue his ass, like that's my mental memory of him. Not thwipping across cranes. It's just one of these things where Garfield will sell the movie.
Okay, so
take that, Jim Davis.
Is this the vote to sweep, or Andrew Garfield as Norman Bates. All right, let's get to our final round, everyone. And this final round is going to be for our director. Now, Alfred Hitchcock, I mean, what can you say about him? He's just Mount Rushmore of probably the greatest directors in all of cinema. Directed Psycho masterfully, but again, in this alternate timeline, he didn't make Psycho. Psycho didn't come out in 1960. Psycho, maybe he wrote a script somewhere that was hidden and someone found it. It's like, hey, let's make this unmade Alfred Hitchcock movie, or maybe someone else wrote it originally. Who knows? But we got to choose a new filmmaker of today to helm Psycho. So let's start off with you, Jack. Who's your choice for director for Psycho?
Okay, so several times throughout this debate, we've talked about how things in this movie should not just be scary, but they explore psychology. They explore the internal processing of the characters and what they're thinking and feeling. And someone who I think is very good at that, and his resume proves it, is David O. Russell. He does stories about characters who are pretty messed up sometimes, like he did with Silver Linings Playbook and the Wrestler and with American Hustle. His characters, he hasn't done anything scary, but he does things about characters who do some pretty crazy things, and they do it because they are pretty crazy. So with that in mind, I went with David O. Russell, and I would be curious to see, because he hasn't done a straight out horror movie yet, because he focuses on stories about characters who are so mixed up, what he would do with a all-out scary movie. I'd be very curious to see how David O. Russell would approach a story like this and a movie like this.
All right, Jessica, who's your choice for director?
The director I chose for this was Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan is well known for horror movies and TV shows as well. He was a director of The Haunting of Hill House. He's also involved with The Haunting of Bly Manor, coming I think next week. Gerald's Game. Probably his big Hollywood break like feature was Dr. Sleep. And the reason why I picked him is because with his filmography and just with his vision, he knows how to tell a good horror story. He knows how to tell a good suspense story. And he also knows how to do a lot with a story that revolves around family, whether it's the family that you make or the family that you have. He did that a lot with Dr. Sleep, with the kind of family that we get between grown-up Danny Torrance and Abra, as well as even the villains of that movie. Rosie the Hat, and her coven, her cult, are basically like a family in and of themselves, and the dynamics of that. With Hush, we get that with Maddie and her family. So he knows how to tell a good horror story as well as helping a family through turmoil. We probably see that mostly in The Haunting of Hill House. So just between the family dynamic of Lila and Sam trying to find Marion, trying to figure out what's going on, but also Norman and his dynamic with his mother would be very interesting. And also because he has done stories revolving around addiction, alcoholism, drug addiction, it would be interesting to see what other things he could do surrounding mental illness. That would be interesting for a movie like Psycho.
Okay, and lastly, Hunter, who's your choice for director?
My choice is the obvious choice, the best choice. That's right, he's reinventing the horror genre one movie at a time, and this would just be another notch in his belt. Of course, I'm talking about Jordan Peele. I can't believe you two let me pick this one and didn't snatch him up first. Get Out, Us. Are you kidding me? This guy is the Hitchcock of our modern day, and he's only made 2 films so far as writer-director. Can you imagine what he's going to do next? And can you imagine what he would do with a project like this? The possibilities are blowing my mind. I cannot wait to get into it, but please let me hear what you have to say about your directors.
All right, this is going to be fun. Debate it out.
I swear, I had Jordan Peele up until the very last minute because I thought it would be too obvious of a choice. I wanted to go with someone who maybe hadn't done a horror movie yet, but is certainly capable of doing a horror movie. Somebody who had done crime dramas, someone who had done psychological movies about psychotic characters. And so that's why I sided more with my guy, David O. Russell. Also, David O. Russell is amazing with actors, and he's brought in some great performances out of his actresses in the past. Particular Amy Adams in American Hustle is one of my favorites of hers. And when I picked Amy Adams as Marion, I wanted to consider that.
I think the only issue that I would have with David O. Russell is mainly, like, he is a great director in and of his own right. I don't know if he fits for this genre. Horror and suspense or thriller is a very specific type of movie to do. So it's kind of hard to put my eggs in one basket for one that I haven't really seen his interpretation of how to do a horror movie, because you have to make some really, really specific choices, not just to get a good performance, but also to tell a good story. That's why I think like Jordan or Mike would kind of fit better as a director for this. And really, I feel like the only concern I might have for Jordan, because trust me, I have very limited ones. He's like my favorite director of today. I feel like he would need to make a lot of tweaks to the script to have it fit the kind of movie that he would want to make. And it's just because with the movies that we've seen from him so far, and even with things like Lovecraft Country and Twilight Zone, there's always a deeper social message with it, especially regarding the stories of people of color, which are the voices that we have not heard in cinema, in media, and we're now starting to listen like we should have a long time ago. So I don't know if this would have the particular type of story that he would want to bring forward just from his past works. And really, yeah, with Mike Flanagan, the reason why I went with him, he knows how to tell a horror story, but he also knows how to do interesting choices when it comes to mental illness as well as addiction, and he knows how to build suspense. Yeah.
Thank you for teeing me up there, Jess. And now if you'll allow me, I'm going to hit this hole in one. You see, Mike Flanagan, honestly not a bad pick, because like Jordan Peele, they both work in horror a whole lot. My biggest hang up on Mike Flanagan is that while he does explore some of these more interesting things on the subtextual level, on the textual level, what he likes to delve into is more the supernatural horror. And Psycho is horror, but it's thriller, it's suspense, it's crime. It's more of a real life evil. And I have not seen Mike Flanagan tackle anything that doesn't have this more otherworldly feel to it. So that's my biggest hang up on him. As far as your pick goes, Jack, look, I love some David O. Russell movies, but even his dramas really turn out to be dramedies. Like, the guy kind of has, like, he is like a pop artist, right? Like, he only creates songs within 4 chords, and those 4 chords, he knows how to play them, but he does not get outside of them very often. And, I mean, now, from what I've heard about working with him on set, that might feel like a horror movie to a lot of people. Apparently, he is a terror. But the final project usually comes out to be, like I said, more of a dramedy. I can speak from experience working on a set with Jordan Peele, and he is a delight. Jordan Peele brings, thank you, Jessica, for making so many of my points for me. He brings so much extra to the horror genre. I mean, what I love about him as a director, and I think would be an interesting challenge for him as a filmmaker that we haven't gotten to see him do yet, because he has so far written and produced his own work as a director, to see what he would do to extrapolate from the already written word. And that is what a great director does, is they elevate what's already there on the page and turn it into something more. They would turn it into something relevant. In this imagined scenario that we're creating, as Curtis set it up in the beginning, Alfred Hitchcock and his team, they wrote the script back in the late 50s, early 60s, and it's been sitting in a drawer somewhere. Now we're bringing it out, and we're going to bring it into the modern era. That does mean that there's going to have to be a tweak here or there, but more importantly, that's going to come about from the casting, and furthermore from the direction and the point of view. And that is the director's job, is to deliver to us that point of view. And so I think in the hands of Jordan Peele, what Psycho did for looking at mental health and class distinctions in the 1960s, we're going to get that times 2020, baby. We're going to get to see the modern version of that through this genius. That's right, I said it, genius's eyes. We are talking about the man whose debut film netted him an Academy Award nomination for Best Director, Best Producer, and he won for Best Screenplay for a horror movie. This was the first horror film to be nominated for an Oscar since The Exorcist. Well, depends on if you consider Silence of the Lambs. But 1991. You know what? I'll put that one in there in this as well, because it still fits what we're talking about, which is because that's more. I would say The Exorcist is more of a Mike Flanagan type horror, again with the more supernatural elements, whereas Silence of the Lambs, Get Out, Psycho are more of a real horror story. They are a psychological thriller, and that's why I think Jordan Peele just fits it to a T.
Well, I do agree on your point that Mike Flanagan does have a lot more paranormal horror under his belt. He also does have real life horror, such as Hush and Gerald's Game. And that's all based in the real world and how we're facing things, whether it's a serial killer or whether you're trying to survive after a bondage game gone wrong. And yeah, it's just, it has to give credit to Mike Flanagan, the fact that he was able to do Dr. Sleep, show Stephen King, and have Stephen King tell him straight up, you made me not hate The Shining anymore, you make me appreciate it more, says a lot, because that's a very intimidating force to go up against, not just as a writer, but as a director. And it was just one of those things of, he had written the script for Dr. Sleep, made the movie, and the fact that they had a good discussion about it afterwards. Since you asked Gerald's Game, I'm going to try to keep it as PG as I can because we're on Cast of the Future. It is about a husband and wife who have been married for a while. They're trying to spice some things up. They bring some things into the mommy and daddy room, and in the middle of their escapades, the husband suffers a heart attack and she is left chained to the bed frame and she has no way to get help. So it's focusing on the wife and kind of what she's going through and how she's supposed to be surviving this. And it's like, all that aside, like, he has done horror movies that are based in the real world, mainly though just focusing on how the story would be told. I didn't know what else to say. How the story would be told. It also lies in the fact of the subtext of the script. And he has extensive background, I should say, on his resume on families surviving horrific situations together or fighting for each other, whether it's Haunting of Hill House, Oculus, Before I Wake, Hush. So there's a lot of elements going in where people use family as a factor to make the decisions they make to kind of give them a motivation to survive, as well as kind of the dynamics that go in between there. And that's why I think that Mike Flanagan would bring a really good kind of vision to a story like this.
I have to concur with Hunter's point that between the two, Jordan Peele is much more realistic scary, much more human scary. And I believe that Psycho, while it's a slasher film and absolutely a horror film, it's also a psychological drama. And for a good part of the movie, you're just seeing Marion drive and you're hearing thoughts in her head. And so I think someone who, like Jordan Peele or my guy David O. Russell, who specializes in the internal thought and the internal monologue and things like that, is more suited to this specific horror story. So I would have to concur with Hunter on that.
I'm just going to give my final thought here. Jordan Peele is my...
I see what you did there. All right. Wow. So nice.
Hunter, stop.
Oh, it's still going. It's still going. It's still going. All right. Oh, you know what, Johnny? I'm gonna start with you. What do you think?
I was just continuing that. I'm gonna keep it straight up, super simple. Give it to I gotta go with the modern master of suspense. We could say horror, we could say psychological, we could do whatever, but like I have not felt suspense like I did when Daniel Kaluuya was picking at the armrest. It's small stuff like that that is very Hitchcockian. That is very the tone of what this movie is. I could praise Get Out until the cows come home, moo, but like the part where you see the police sirens at the end of Get Out, that is suspense, because even when you're out of it, or you think he's out of it, you're not out of it. And that's the kind of director that keeps me at the edge of my seat, that sells me on going into a COVID-filled theater. You know, like I'm sorry, these movies that we're casting, they're all streaming, baby. There's no way you're getting me into a theater. But with Jordan Peele, I might fork over a few dollars if I can rent out the entire theater myself. But it's suspense. It's suspense. David O. Russell was a close second, just because I know him, because one, I know him more, and second of all, his movies get me, but not in the suspenseful way that this story is. So hands down, Jordan Peele.
All right, Logan, what's your thoughts?
Man, this is another one that was a very, very tricky one to go through. Yeah, my cat also has opinions about it over there. Well, I'll start off with Jordan Peele. You're right. There's a lot of what he's doing lately is very much dealing with that suspense and that like slow turning of the screw and kind of, you know, getting that going. But you know, he has written both of the things he's directed, so he would feel the need to kind of tweak the script a little bit and kind of go with that. Jess, I liked your argument with Mike Flanagan of he can tell a good horror story while keeping the family drama in there, and how his movies have this theme of a family coming together and surviving through horror. And Jack, I liked your argument with David O. Russell about how he does dramas with messed up characters, and that's kind of his niche and where he falls. At the end of the day, though, I think you kind of said it yourself, though, that David O. Russell hasn't done much horror, and when it comes to Psycho, like, you need to have just a snippet of horror in there. So I was less inclined to go with him, also because the only thing I saw from him was American Hustle, and I was on American Hustle. So at the end of the day, it kind of came down to Jordan Peele and Mike Flanagan. And honestly, between the two of them, while I thoroughly enjoy Mike Flanagan, I think he's actually like slowly becoming one of my favorite like horror directors. The idea of I think Jordan Peele would have a much slower turning of the screw over the course of the movie. I think he could probably have a little bit more fun with some of those details. So I ended up going with Jordan Peele.
Man, I'm gonna give this a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, Hunter, you brought your A game to this round. I think I'm also gonna have to go with Jordan Peele. Now, I was hesitant at first to go with Jordan Peele because, again, what Jessica said, Jordan Peele, his movies, yeah, they're under this skin of horror, but underneath it, there's a deeper social issues that he likes to deal with. But you can kind of, I mean, Hunter, when you brought up your case, you could kind of see that Psycho was probably expressing social and psychological issues already, with things of class, with what Marion's going through, and what Norman's going through, and things that they have to deal with psychologically. And Jordan Peele's a kind of director who loves to give empowerment to Black voices. And even though we got mostly a white cast here, John David Washington is kind of still considered a lead in this film since he's playing Sam. and we get to see a good chunk of his movie from his point of view. So that still kind of works out with something that a kind of film like Jordan Peele would do. And I think as much as I really like Mike Flanagan's work and what he did in Doctor Sleep, I have to agree that Mike Flanagan, I think I haven't really seen him. I haven't seen Hush, so I don't know what type of horror film that is. But Mike Flanagan, from what I've seen and what I'm known, he's done more supernatural horror. I haven't seen him do more like real world psychological thriller horror yet. Again, I don't know if Hush is that type of film, Jessica. I haven't seen Hush, so forgive me on that. But that's just from my point of view. And with David O. Russell, when I try to see David O. Russell making this movie, I'm thinking about the editing and the cinematography of Psycho. When David O. Russell makes his movies, even though a lot of them are good movies, the way he has them edited and the way he shoots them kind of looks like every other film. And I think if you get someone like Jordan Peele and even Mike Flanagan, it's become very close to what Alfred Hitchcock's vision was back in 1960. So yeah, mine is Jordan Peele. I think this is the obvious vote, but Erik, I still want to hear your thoughts.
I guess I'll just get to the point because everyone kind of made points I would have made. Yeah, my choice would have been Jordan Peele as well. Just very quickly, David O. Russell, I think he would make a very intense movie. He'd do a very good job. My issue with him actually would have been his style. Because I feel like he likes the shaky cam a lot, and it would have been a cool effect, but I feel like this movie has a very slow burn. I feel like it would have been better if he would stick with like more of still images or like Dalian, something that Jordan Peele and Mike Flanagan, they do very well. I think like the one scene that still gets me from American Hustle was the scene with Robert De Niro. That was a very intense and actually really scary moment. And I'm like, maybe he can build tension very well. But that was just one scene. I feel like if he did a whole movie with it, we'll see. But Mike Flanagan and Jordan Peele have just been doing way more of that. And Mike Flanagan pretty much gave us his resume with the amazing Hush movie. But I feel like he's gotten way more comfortable doing, like as it was said before about supernatural movies, he's gotten way more comfortable doing that, especially with Haunting on Hill House and recently Dr. Sleep. I think he enjoys doing supernatural elements while he focuses on reality and does a very good job with that. But Jordan Peele, Get Out and Us was like a Hitchcock. They were both Hitchcock love letters and love letters to a lot of horror films, but there was a lot of things that Hitchcock would have done in those movies that Jordan Peele just did perfectly. And definitely with Get Out, I've never had more fun watching a horror movie. But for Psycho, I think he would definitely hit all those notes very well. Like we would have fun watching Psycho. We'd be scared, but also have fun watching it. And when it gets to the end, you're just like, the experience of it, like you can see this movie make a ton of money with Jordan Peele's name on it, but everyone would go to see it and they'd have a blast. So I feel like Jordan Peele he'd put butts in seats. So yeah, Jordan Peele.
All right, so there we go. That's a sweep for Jordan Peele as director of 2020 Psycho. And with that, folks, we have our full cast assembled. Let me run them down. We got Kyle Chandler as Milton Arbogast. We have John David Washington as Sam Loomis. We have Elizabeth Olsen as Lila Crane. We have Amy Adams as Marion Crane. We have Andrew Garfield as Norman Bates. And as our director, we've got Jordan Peele. Let me tell you, of all the cast features we've done so far, this has to be one of the most stacked, just A-list, like prime cast that we've ever come up with. My God, look at these names. Look at the director. Jesus. I'm going to see this like, I don't care if there's a couple. I'm going to the theater to see this. I'm not watching this. Oh, no. Wow. Oh, my God. Yeah. You guys, you obviously know my opinion on the list that we come up with here. Erik, what's your thoughts on our assembled cast?
Very quickly, I would see this movie in a heartbeat. Jordan Peele, I mean, I'd love to see a follow-up to Us and hope he's doing something like this. But if this was what he was doing, yeah, I definitely would go see it. Within this, the cast is perfect. All of you did an amazing job picking picking your cast. Whoever we would have chosen, I still would have seen the movie anyway, just looking at it, who everyone had chosen, but who we had chosen for this competition. Yeah, I would definitely go see it.
All right. So Hunter had to run, but I'm pretty sure he's pretty satisfied with the
Yeah, you got a sweep. He's
casting that
happy.
we came up with. Jack, what are your thoughts about our ensemble cast?
I love this cast. I love this director. I like I said, I swear I had Jordan Peele down until I was like, well, maybe that's a little too obvious a choice. So that's what I get for that. But the one that I was most passionate about was Amy Adams as Marion, and I'm so happy that that got through. So, and everybody else, I love all the other choices as well. So absolutely would see this movie and enjoy it.
Jessica, what are your thoughts?
Have you met me? Obviously, I would see this. Duh. I think it'd be an interesting movie. It'd be interesting to see how these guys would all work together. But yeah, no, I definitely see it.
Johnny?
Yeah, like I said, wherever this is streaming, I'll watch it. Outside of that, Jordan, I think, would have the perfect take on a movie that has to do with this subject matter, especially all the trans stuff, the split personality stuff. Like, there's so much stuff in today's light that he could do with this that I can't see any other director doing. Garfield, bless him for dealing with Otis and everything, but he'd be perfect. I mean, it's hands down a great cast. You guys all did great.
And Logan, what are your thoughts?
Oof. I mean, again, yeah, the cast we have assembled, much like, I can always tell when we have a really phenomenal cast put together because I start imagining the scenes from the original with some of the actors that we have, and I start getting really kind of happy with it. So imagining Andrew Garfield in the room with Amy Adams talking about, oh well, she's no more harmless than any one of these stuffed birds. It's like that. I think of those scenes and it makes me happy. I think the cast we have assembled here feels very much in the spirit of the original film while also breaking out and doing its own thing.
All right, so one more time, let me run down our cast and our director for 2020 Psycho. Kyle Chandler is Milton Arbogast, John David Washington, Sam Loomis, Elizabeth Olsen is Lila Crane, Amy Adams as Marion Crane, Andrew Garfield as Norman Bates, and Jordan Peele as director. I would like to thank our panel today. I'd like to thank Logan, Erik, Jack, Johnny, Jessica, and Hunter for joining us today and helping us create this power stack cast of 2020 Psycho. Thank you for watching this episode of Cast the Feature, everybody. Tune in next week where I'm once again going to throw my hat into the debater circle. And next episode is going to focus on one of my favorite horror films of all time, The Shining. That's a Dr. Sleep post in the background, but it's still related. You got to say Red back there. So I can't wait for that. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, look forward to more cast features, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.